Chapter 939, The Savior, 1, What's the difference? I've already said that he's looking for us. Since you like to fight in groups, well, fulfill your wish. Feng De smiled evilly. Then, he gave Lin Yuan and the others a look. Everyone understood and attacked together to beat up Yuan House subordinates. Bang! 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 As the punches hit flesh, Yuan House subordinates quickly couldn't take it anymore and burst into tears. They had always been used to using their power to intimidate others. They had never thought that they would be beaten up so badly. After all, they were in the territory of the First Alliance. Not many people would dare to beat them up. However, what was even more infuriating was that these people actually beat them with their fists. Boo-hoo. No one in the God realm would use their fists in a fight. They were really too careless. Many of Yuan House subordinates couldn't help but feel uneasy. Spare me. Spare me. Don't hit me anymore. It was unknown who took the lead to beg for mercy. Then, Yuan House subordinates begged for mercy one after another. Unfortunately, Feng De and the others turned a deaf ear to their words and beat them up even more happily. Well, the people of the Divine Continent were really different. It had been a long time since they had such a good beating. Moreover, they would not stop until their opponents were beaten down alive. Ling Qianye could not bear to watch the end. Ling Qianye was very clear about the combat strength of Feng De and the others. However, it still felt different to see it with his own eyes. Moreover, seeing Feng De and the others beating them up so happily, he wanted to make a move. Unfortunately, just Feng De and the others alone were not enough for Yuan House subordinates. Therefore, he could only watch with envy. After Feng De and the others beat the last person unconscious, they turned their gazes to the original owner. Your name is Yuan Ho, 1. The pronunciation sounds like ape, right? Feng De raised his head high and deliberately asked condescendingly. So what if I am? This is the territory of the First Alliance. The Alliance Master of the First Alliance is my father. Don't mess around. When Yuan Ho saw Feng De and the others' cold gazes, he was so frightened that his entire body trembled and he stuttered. In fact, he really wanted to run, but after seeing their fierce looks, his legs went weak and he couldn't run at all. Therefore, he could only stand there foolishly and let the other party look at him. The fear in his heart almost suffocated him. When Ling Qianye saw the gazes of Feng De and the others, he was also shocked. They didn't want to beat up Yuan Ho, right? Even though he wanted to, now wasn't the time to beat him up. However, Feng De and the others didn't give him a chance to stop them and directly got him. Thud. 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 After a few loud bangs, the sound of the original owner screaming like a pig being slaughtered filled the street. Ah! Ah! Help! Yuan Ho cried loudly. Unfortunately, other than Feng De and the others, there was no one else on the street. The reason why there was no one else here was because Yuan Ho and the others had scared everyone away. Therefore, he had brought this upon himself. Now, not only was there no one to help him, but there was no one to return to the First Alliance to inform his father. Fuck, you can't even take a little beating, and you're still screaming so miserably. You're really a disgrace to men. Are you still a man? Feng De had just beaten him up when Yuan Ho started wailing like a ghost. This made him very unhappy. I'm not a man. I'm not a man. Please spare me. Boo-hoo, Yuan Ho cried and begged. He was scared to death. After all, it was always others who begged him like this. This was the first time he had begged someone so humbly. Spare you. Dream on. Feng De threw a left hook, followed by a right hook. In 2 moves, he knocked out the teeth in Yuan Ho's mouth. The others did not stay idle either. They punched each other in an orderly manner. After a few punches, Yuan Ho was no longer recognizable. Don't hit me. Yuan Ho slurred. Don't kill him. At this moment, Ling Qianye couldn't help but remind him. Then, he punched him again. Yes, yes. Don't worry, we know our limits. Feng De nodded and promised. My father won't let you off. After hearing that the other party wouldn't kill him, Yuan Ho naively thought that they were afraid of his father's identity and status, so he didn't forget to threaten them. Your father. Fuck, I hate being threatened the most. I'll beat you up until your father can't recognize you today, Feng De said fiercely. Then, his punches became even more ruthless and fierce. In fact, the reason why they didn't dare to use the divine skill was not only because it felt more realistic to use their fists to hit people, but also because they were afraid that the divine skill would cause too much commotion and attract some people over. Your father. Fuck, I hate being threatened the most. I'll beat you up until your father can't recognize you today, Feng De said fiercely. Then, his punches became even more ruthless and fierce. In fact, the reason why they didn't dare to use the divine skill was not only because it felt more realistic to use their fists to hit people, but also because they were afraid that the divine skill would cause too much commotion and attract some people over. Seeing this, everyone punched him a few more times. A moment later, Yuan Ho fainted as they had hoped. This guy doesn't have his subordinates to take the beating. Feng De said with dissatisfaction and disdain after Yuan Ho fainted. Yes. He's used to being pampered, Ling Qianye said speechlessly. However, he was very cooperative. Thank you, Ling Qianye said again, feeling warm inside. There's no need to be polite. We're all on the same side. How can we watch outsiders bully our people? Besides, even if we don't attack these people, I believe you can deal with them yourself, Feng De said understandingly. He knew that if they didn't appear, Ling Qianye would have attacked himself. However, their appearance was also to let Ling Qianye know that he wasn't fighting alone. This is different, Ling Qianye said, touched. Actually, he was quite envious of Shuer for having such a group of subordinates. Sigh. There were fewer and fewer loyal and united people in the Ling family. Can we leave this place now? Feng De changed the topic. There was no need to be too polite with each other, so he really didn't like to see Ling Qianye being so emotional. Hee. Yes. Ling Qianye nodded. It was time to leave this place. Otherwise, if he was discovered, he would cause trouble. He knew that the Alliance Master doted on this good-for-nothing son. Chapter 940, The Savior, 2, Then Let's Go. Feng De took out Yao from his arms and asked Yao to cast an invisibility spell on them. Then, everyone walked back to the inn. Ah! Isn't this Shuer's beast? Ling Qianye asked curiously on the way back to the guest shop. That's right. Miss lent it to me, Feng De said. Before they came out, Miss had lent Dazzle to them in case of emergencies. They didn't expect that she would really use it now. Hee. Miss was still the first to see it. Everyone chatted as they walked. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the inn. However, Feng De pulled them to a corner first. Then, he handed each of them a pill and let them eat it. This pill was the antidote to the appearance-changing pill. They had also eaten the appearance-changing pill before they wanted to beat someone up. Moreover, they were not invisible when they came out, so they naturally had to go back the way they came out. What's this? Ling Qianye looked at the pill in his hand and asked in confusion. This is the antidote for the appearance-changing pill. We can return to the inn openly after taking it, Feng De whispered. I'd better not eat it. Ling Qianye thought for a moment and said. He was in a difficult position. After eating the antidote and returning to his original appearance, he was afraid that others would recognize him. However, he should not eat it. He was also afraid that Yuan Ho would come looking for him. Sigh. He was in a dilemma. If you don't eat it, we'll be exposed if Yuan Ho comes looking for us. After all, we still have to stay here for a few more days. Feng De reminded him. But if I take the antidote, Yuan Ho will still find trouble if he recognizes me, Ling Qianye said helplessly. What are you afraid of? Are you planning to leave alone? Feng De glared at him. Humph. Don't think that he didn't know what Ling Qianye was thinking. If he really thought that he wouldn't cause them trouble if he left, then he was wrong. There were some troubles that couldn't be avoided. Besides, Miss wouldn't agree with him doing this. Therefore, Feng De believed that his decision was right. Ah! Ling Qianye was speechless. In fact, he really had the idea of leaving them temporarily. However, was this Feng De a worm in his stomach? Why did he know everything? Hee. I advise you not to think about it. If you're afraid that it'll be inconvenient for you to show your true face, you can just hide in the space. Anyway, with us around, we'll definitely find your grandfather. Don't worry. Feng De said very understandingly. However, he couldn't show himself casually after entering the space. Thank you. Ling Qianye was a little embarrassed. It seemed that bystanders could see things clearly. How could he have forgotten about Shuer's space? After all, he had never been a good person. Don't be afraid, I've already refused, Ling Ruoxue comforted. I have to be afraid. It's safest to leave this place. Okay, then let's leave after breakfast. Ling Ruoxue thought for a moment and said. Everyone nodded and left the room together for breakfast. When Ling Ruoxue and the others walked into the restaurant, there was almost no one inside. After they entered, there were few empty tables in the restaurant. As they were finishing their meal, they suddenly heard voices from the next table. Visit Riedel. Me for extra chapters. Ha! I think Qinglan has nothing to be proud of now, a young woman said loudly. Yes. Now she's a laughing stock, echoed the woman across from her. Humph. That bitch should be like this. This is all her retribution. Who asked her to marry so many men? Now she's finally kicked an iron plate. The woman who spoke first gloated, but the jealousy in her eyes was red and could not be concealed. That's right. How many women in the god realm would dare to be like her? Humph. Those men spoiled her too much. However, now that she's finally been dumped, it's really satisfying. Another woman added, her face also filled with jealousy. The two women who spoke were very young and beautiful. However, the words coming out of their mouths were not so pleasant. Moreover, their voices were very loud, so Ling Ruoxue and the others had no choice but to listen. Not only that, the two women became happier as they chatted and gossiped about Qinglan as if no one else was around. Damn it, are you done talking? Shut up. Qingwu couldn't stand it anymore. He stood up and shouted. Even though he didn't like Qinglan, he couldn't help but feel indignant for her because these two women's mouths were filled with filth. It was simply unbearable. How dare you talk to us like that? Do you know who we are? The two women immediately shouted when they heard Qingwu's roar. I don't care who you are. Damn it, your mouths are too filthy, you've polluted my ears, Qingwu said in disdain. Sigh. It was really infuriating to compare oneself to others. Even though he didn't like Qinglan, he now felt that Qinglan was 100 times better than these two women. How dare you call our mouths filthy? Do you want to die? The two women glared and shouted at the top of their lungs. That's the case, Qingwu said with disgust, not even looking at them. Damn it, I'm going to kill you. A woman roared and attacked. Several blue lights flew towards Qingwu. Qingwu gently blocked the woman's attack with his hand and immediately counterattacked. Seeing Qingwu and the two women fighting, Feng De and the others quickly hid in a safe place to avoid being implicated and watching the battle. You disloyal people. Qingwu was furious when he saw that Feng De and the others had actually avoided him. None of them had any intention of helping. Looking at Feng De's aggrieved expression, everyone couldn't help but laugh. You can laugh all you want. Feng De said calmly. He was very proud of being able to entertain everyone, and he liked the happy atmosphere between them, so he didn't mind being teased occasionally. When everyone was done laughing, Len Ruoxue said, "Let's go out in batches starting tomorrow. Maybe we can find useful clues." "Right." They nodded and divided into groups. The next day, everyone left the inn in batches. However, Len Ruoxue and the freak did not go out. The two of them stayed in the purple bamboo house in the bracelet. "Freak, when do you think that damn ape will be discovered?" Len Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously as she leaned in the freak's arms. Chapter 941, The Savior, 3. "I thought someone had already spotted him," Freak said with a wicked grin. "But no one seems to have informed that Alliance Master," Len Ruoxue said indifferently. "Hee hee. Then you can only blame the ape for being unpopular." The freak laughed happily. So far, that ape was still lying on the street. Anyone who passed by and found him injured, not to mention that no one planned to save him, no one even went to the First League to inform them. He did not believe that no one recognized the ape. From this, it could be seen how unpopular the monkey was. The First Alliance didn't notice that their Alliance Master's precious son didn't return overnight? Len Ruoxue said in disbelief. This matter was really too bizarre. Hee hee. I guess that ape often stays out late at night. The people of the First Alliance are already used to it, so naturally, no one wants to look for him. The freak thought for a moment and guessed. Hee hee. He really got what he deserved. Len Ruoxue gloated. When she heard this from Qing Ju, she almost laughed out loud. "Swear, let's not worry about what will happen to that ape. Let's worry about ourselves while no one is around," the freak said expectantly. "Worried about ourselves? All right." Len Ruoxue nodded. "Swear, then let me." Before the freak could finish, he saw that the scenery they were in had changed. Ah! Why were they back in the room? He looked at Shuer bitterly. "Feng De and the others are back." Len Ruoxue smiled evilly. "Shuer, you did it on purpose," the freak said unhappily, tears rolling in his eyes. Unfortunately, Len Ruoxue ignored his pitiful appearance. "Freak, don't accuse me." Len Ruoxue also looked at the freak aggrievedly and even imitated him to act pitiful. "Snow," Freak began, but was interrupted by a knock on the door. "Go and open the door." Len Ruoxue chuckled. Feng De and the others were really back. She didn't lie to the freak. Yes. The freak nodded. Then, he reluctantly went to open the door. When he saw Feng De and the others standing outside, he did not give them a good look, making Feng De and the others feel puzzled. Mississippi. After Feng De and the others entered the room, they greeted Len Ruoxue. Then, they secretly glanced at Commander Yi, whose expression was very ugly. Their hearts were in a mess. Some people even thought to themselves, "I didn't provoke Commander Yi. What's wrong with him?" "Yes, did you find anything?" Len Ruoxue asked. Even though she had asked Qing Ju to monitor the movements in the city, there were still some things that she had to find out personally. "Miss, the Ascender Alliance is very cautious. We asked many people indirectly, but they didn't dare to tell us too much. Some even suspected that we were sent by the natives," Vonda explained helplessly. "That's normal. After all, we're outsiders and want to ask them about the Alliance. It's normal for them to suspect something. In the future, be careful when you go out. Don't attract the attention of the people in the First Alliance." Len Ruoxue thought for a moment and reminded them. Feng De and the others were divided into 6 teams and went in different directions. However, so far, only Feng Da's team had returned. Moreover, they did not seem to have made any major discoveries. He wondered if the other teams would gain anything. Len Ruoxue thought to herself. Not long after, the others returned to the guest room. "Miss, we didn't find anything. We were almost arrested," Lin Yuan said gloomily. "So are we," my lady, Chen Wu said, looking crestfallen. The people of the city were too wary of them to speak to them. Neither did we, Song Di agreed. Neither did I. But when I passed a street, I saw a bunch of beat-up guys still lying on the ground. You did it, didn't you? Empty chuckled. Ah. He's still lying on the ground? Fengde said in surprise. It had been a night, but no one from the First League had brought them back. It was really abnormal. Yes. They're all unconscious. Besides, everyone who saw them chose to take a detour. Empty said with some amusement. This was probably the funniest thing that had happened to him since he arrived. Ah. The people from this alliance are really amazing. Fengde was in disbelief. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing in his life. I think they're afraid of getting into trouble, so it's better to mind their own business in the God realm. Otherwise, they'll easily get into trouble, Ling Qianye said understandingly. Sometimes, even if we don't take the initiative to cause trouble, trouble will come to us. So, it's useless to be afraid. The best way is to solve the trouble, Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Yes, yes. Fengde and the others agreed with Leng Ruoxue. Even though they hated trouble, they were not afraid of it. Otherwise, he would not have dared to beat up the ape. Shuer, why aren't you surprised at all? Empty asked curiously when he saw Leng Ruoxue's calm reaction after hearing his words. I got it. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Ah. Miss, why didn't you tell us when you found out? Let us be happy too. Fengde complained. I didn't know for long. I didn't have time to tell you guys, Leng Ruoxue said innocently. Miss, when do you think the First Alliance will realize that something has happened to the ape? Fengde asked curiously. I don't know. That depends on the ape's usual performance. If he's not at home often, I don't think anyone will look for him, Leng Ruoxue teased with a smile. At least 3 days, Ling Qianye said with certainty. Hee hee. Won't the ape be in trouble? Fengde said happily. It has nothing to do with us if he's not unlucky. The most important thing now is to find the whereabouts of our cheap ancestor, Leng Ruoxue said gloomily. She didn't like this place, so she only wanted to see her cheap sake old ancestor so that she could leave quickly. Chapter 942, The Savior, 4, Little Shuer, Grandpa won't tell me if I contact him. Why don't you try asking him? Ling Qianye suggested. Then I'll try. Leng Ruoxue nodded. In fact, she had contacted the ancestor before, but the ancestor didn't reply to her, so she didn't try again. With that, Leng Ruoxue sent a voice transmission to her ancestor through the voice transmission jade token. However, there was still no reply this time. He didn't reply to me, Leng Ruoxue said in disappointment a moment later. If her ancestor didn't reply to her and Qing Ju couldn't monitor his whereabouts, they could only continue searching. Grandpa is probably refining, so he doesn't have time to reply. Don't worry. Ling Qianye comforted himself. After all, he was also worried. I hope so. Since I didn't find any useful information today, I don't have to go out today to avoid arousing suspicion. Leng Ruoxue thought for a moment. Okay. Everyone nodded and then asked to return to the space to cultivate. Leng Ruoxue sent them into the bracelet. For 3 days in a row, Fengde and the others would go out to the streets every day. This time, they changed their strategy and only strolled on the streets. They did not ask anything and first got to know each other so that they would not be suspected. After 3 days of hard work, their strategy was beginning to bear fruit. At least someone was willing to talk to them. They also openly and secretly asked about the internal gossip of the First Alliance. After some people opened up, they could not shut up. They would tell them all the good and bad things, making Fengde and the others not know whether to laugh or cry. As for the unlucky ape and his subordinates, they were still lying on the ground and ignored. Fengde and the others would pass by them every day, either intentionally or unintentionally. Then, after returning to the guest room, they would start discussing. Feng De and the others even made a bet out of boredom, guessing how many days it would take for the ape to be brought back by the First Alliance. After another 3 days, Feng De and the others finally got some information. Leng Xiaoyu was indeed in the First Alliance, but he was not invited by the First Alliance master. Instead, he was imprisoned as a hostage. When Leng Ruoxue heard this news, she was completely furious. However, the person who told them this like a thief did not know the exact situation. He only knew that it was related to refining weapons. It had something to do with refining weapons? Leng Ruoxue thought for a long time but couldn't think of anything. If he wanted to refine weapons, so be it. Why did he have to imprison him? Could it be that his ancestor was unwilling to refine weapons for the Alliance Master, so the Alliance Master locked him up in a fit of anger? Thinking of this, Leng Ruoxue felt that it was possible. However, Leng Qianye rejected her idea. Leng Qianye knew his grandfather very well. He was a person who did as he pleased. However, he took refining very seriously and treated refining as important as his own life. Therefore, even if it was someone or an enemy he didn't like, as long as you could pay or take out the materials he was interested in, he would still refine equipment for you. Therefore, he did not think that his grandfather was locked up because he was unwilling to refine weapons for the Alliance Master. After all, other than the matter with the ape, they did not have any blood feud with the Alliance Master. Therefore, if the Alliance Master really looked for his grandfather should not refuse to refine weapons for him. At most, he would make him bankrupt. Grandpa often said that enemies did not have to kill him to vent their anger. There were many ways to torture people, and killing the other party directly was the least painful. Therefore, his grandfather would never make a loss. Leng Qianye knew very well that although his grandfather looked cold on the outside, he was actually black-hearted. In the guest room, Leng Ruoxue and the others gathered. "Miss, why don't I turn invisible and search the First Alliance?" Feng De suggested. "You might not be able to find it if you go. The only way now is to go straight to the First League." Leng Ruoxue frowned and pondered, then said. "Shuer, do you want to go straight to the door and ask for her?" "The Alliance Master will probably pretend not to know," Empty reminded her. This matter seemed to be a secret in the Alliance, and not many people knew about it. "Miss, can we enter directly?" Chen Wu frowned. "Little Shuer, I'm afraid we won't even be able to enter the First Alliance," Leng Qianye said. "Who said we can't enter? We're the saviors of his precious son." Leng Ruoxue smiled evilly and turned her attention to the ape that no one cared about. It had been a few days and no one had claimed the ape yet. Now, it just happened to be useful to them. "Ah! Miss, you're too ruthless," Feng De said with admiration. They were the ones who beat him up. Now, they had become his saviors again. Hee. If that ape knew the truth, he would be furious. "I have no choice. Feng De, bring a few people to save the ape." "We can come as his savior," Leng Ruoxue instructed. Hee. "Okay. Don't worry, miss. I know what to do," Feng De promised and left with a few people. Not long after, Feng De and the others returned with the unconscious ape. They were just short of beating the gongs and drums to make everyone know about it. Their ostentatious actions also caused a commotion in the inn. "Sai, my lord, why did you bring the beggar back?" The shopkeeper frowned when he saw the person Feng De and the others were carrying. His eyelids twitched and his expression was very ugly. "Shopkeeper, he's not a beggar. We picked him up on the road and he's injured. We can't just leave him in the lurch," Feng De said loudly, afraid that the people in the inn could not hear him. Glancing at the ape again, Feng De was already laughing in his heart. He thought to himself, "Oh. If the ape woke up and knew that he had been treated as a beggar, would it break down?" The current ape really looked like a beggar no matter how one looked at it. Not only was it covered in injuries, but its clothes were also covered in a thick layer of dust. After all, it had been exposed to the wind and sun for a few days. How could it look good? However, this was not his concern now. The only thing he had to do was become this ape's savior. Chapter 943, The Savior, 5. In any case, you must not bring such a filthy person into the inn, the innkeeper said with an air of refusal to bend the rules. In the last few days, he had heard of beggars lying in a street, but many seemed to have chosen to ignore them. Why did these people have to meddle? The innkeeper could not understand. Shopkeeper, don't be so heartless. Haven't you heard that saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda? As long as you show mercy, you will definitely be rewarded. Feng De coaxed. That won't do. With him around, it will affect my business. The shopkeeper still refused to give in, and he was even more unwilling to let Feng De bring this trouble to his shop. When Leng Ruoxue and the others arrived downstairs, they happened to see Feng De arguing with the shopkeeper, so they pretended to be puzzled and asked, "What's wrong? What happened?" "Miss, we saved someone on the street." "The shopkeeper refused to let us bring him to the guest shop," Feng De quickly complained, looking aggrieved. "The shopkeeper is afraid that you will affect his business." "Well, it's not wrong for him to think that way." Leng Ruoxue smiled and explained on behalf of the shopkeeper. When the shopkeeper heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he was so touched that he almost cried. Finally, someone understood him. It hadn't been easy. "Then what should we do? We can't just leave him in the lurch." "He's very pitiful," Feng De said awkwardly. He looked at the thing in his hand. It didn't seem appropriate to put it anywhere. "Shopkeeper, since my subordinates discovered him and brought him back, you can't let us throw this person out, right? I believe that you're not such a heartless person, so how about this? Please be magnanimous and let us keep this person. I'll pay double the room fee." Leng Ruoxue praised the shopkeeper simply and then suggested. "All right then. I'll let him stay for the sake of Miss. However, don't let him run around. He'll scare the other customers in the shop with his current appearance." Such a peerless Bowtie's soft request was really impossible for the shopkeeper to refuse. Therefore, he agreed after some thought. After all, she was willing to pay double the room fee. "Thank you, shopkeeper. Please help him get a room," Leng Ruoxue said with a faint smile. "All right," the shopkeeper agreed readily. Then he arranged a room for the beggar and kept muttering, "You've met a good person." After returning to her room, Leng Ruoxue asked Feng De to send medicine to the ape. However, she did not intend to cure all the apes, so the pill could only guarantee that the ape would wake up. "Miss, the ape is awake," Feng De said when he returned. "Okay, let's go see him." Leng Ruoxue chuckled and left the room. When they arrived at the door of the ape room, Leng Ruoxue and the others pushed open the door and walked straight in. The ape, who was lying on the bed, immediately turned his head when he heard the sound. When he saw the peerless beauty in the room, he revealed an extremely stunned gaze. If it weren't for the fact that his body was inconvenient, he would have pounced on her long ago. Where did such a beauty come from? She was really too beautiful. Ape couldn't help but praise in his heart. His heart had long flown to Leng Ruoxue's side, and his lecherous eyes were firmly glued to her body. "You're awake?" Leng Ruoxue asked knowingly and resisted the urge to punch him because this man's gaze was really annoying. "Well, you are," the ape asked politely, pretending to be a gentleman, but his eyes were already betraying the filthy thoughts that ran through his mind. "My surname is Ning," Leng Ruoxue said casually. "So it's Miss Ning. Thank you for saving me." "I will definitely repay you well," the ape said gratefully. He was even more pleasantly surprised because he did not expect his savior to be the famous Miss Ning. Miss Ning's beauty was second to none in the divine continent. However, he had never had the chance to see her. He did not expect that he would be saved by Miss Ning, whom he had admired for a long time. He could not help but feel a little lightheaded looking at the peerless beauty in front of him. "Miss Ning, why did you come to the Ascender Alliance and not stay in the Ning family's divine realm? The ape asked curiously. Even though there were often conflicts between Ascenders and natives, the opposition between any faction was not absolute. There would be conflict between them, but there would also be benefits. He was ignorant and incompetent, but his many years of experience in the Ascender Alliance made him very clear about the interests of the various forces. Therefore, he naturally did not treat this devastatingly beautiful woman as an enemy. Leng Ruoxue was stunned when she heard the ape's words. Ah! She didn't expect the ape to treat her as the young lady of the Ning family. Even though she had just casually said her surname, this accident gave her a better inspiration. Thinking of this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but say with a worried expression, I want to refine an equipment for my father as a gift, but I haven't been able to find the best weapon artificer in the Divine Continent. I've been looking for him for a long time. Recently, I heard that he once appeared in the Ascender Alliance, so I came to try my luck. A craftsman? Miss Ning, our Ascender Alliance has several artificers who are very good. Why don't I get them to help you refine equipment? The ape said fawningly. Our Ning family has an artificer, but my father only likes the equipment refined by His Excellency Leng Xiaoyu, so I've been looking for him. I want to make father happy because father has been worried about my marriage recently. Leng Ruoxue deliberately pretended to be guilty of her daughter. Miss Ning's marriage? The ape probed. Yes. I'm not young anymore. Father is looking for a husband for me. Leng Ruoxue said shyly, but she was sweating in her heart. Ah. It was really not easy to act like a young girl in love. If someone can help me find Leng Xiaoyu's whereabouts and have his help on refining weapons, father will definitely be very happy. He might even marry me to him. Leng Ruoxue continued to throw out a huge bait. Miss Ning, does it have to be Leng Xiaoyu? The ape said with some difficulty. He was also very regretful in his heart. Sigh. That Leng Xiaoyu had a grudge against him. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to order her around. He knew this very well. Yes, my father wants only him, Leng Ruoxue said with certainty. However, I also know that it's not easy to hire Leng Xiaoyu, so if someone knows Leng Xiaoyu's whereabouts and informs me, father will be very happy to know, Leng Ruoxue added. Hearing Leng Ruoxue's words, Ape fell silent. He was even more conflicted because he knew Leng Xiaoyu's whereabouts, but his father had repeatedly ordered him not to tell anyone, so he was very hesitant. Leng Ruoxue saw that the ape was silent and did not disturb him because she knew that the ape needed time to think. It was probably not a glorious thing for the old ancestor to be imprisoned by the Alliance Master. After thinking for a long time, the ape made up his mind and finally made a final decision. Sigh. He would risk everything for his future happiness. Miss Ning, I know where Leng Xiaoyu is, but he has angered my father because of something, so he is being punished. I don't know if my father will let him help you refine weapons. The ape deliberately pretended to be troubled. Even though he liked to bully the weak, he was not stupid at all. He knew very well what to say and what not to say. The real reason why Leng Xiaoyu was locked up could not be said. Oh, I wonder who is your father? Leng Ruoxue's face was full of question marks. My father is the Alliance Master of the Ascender Alliance of the Divine Continent, the ape said proudly. So you're the Alliance Master's young master. Sorry for being disrespectful, Leng Ruoxue said in realization. Hee, Miss Ning, you're too polite. You're my savior. The ape said shyly. Young Master Yuan, you don't have to be too polite. Anyone who passed by would have helped you. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. I wonder if you can introduce me to the next Alliance Master. I believe I can convince the Alliance Master to order Lord Leng Xiaoyu to refine weapons for my father, Leng Ruoxue said with certainty. Chapter 944, The Suspicious Yuan Biao, 1. Of course there's no problem with introducing you, but I'm not sure if my father will agree to let Leng Xiaoyu help you refine weapons. The ape did not dare to be too confident because he was not confident in convincing his father. It's okay, as long as young Master Yuan can introduce me to the next Alliance Master. I'll do the rest myself. Leng Ruoxue chuckled. Her smile was like 100 flowers blooming, making the ape dizzy. Miss Ning, don't worry. I'll help you, the ape said seriously. Then I'll thank young Master Yuan first, Leng Ruoxue said politely. Hee, Miss Ning, you're too polite. You're my savior. I said that I would repay you properly, the ape said very seriously. Young Master Yuan, saving you is also fate. Why are you still talking about repaying us? You've just woken up, so I won't disturb you anymore. Have a good rest. Leng Ruoxue suppressed her disgust and left with everyone. Miss Ning, the ape muttered to himself as he looked at Leng Ruoxue's back. He made up his mind to find a way for Leng Xiaoyu to refine weapons for Miss Ning. How could he bear to disappoint such a peerless beauty? Moreover, this was also for his future happiness, so he believed that it was all worth it. After leaving the ape's room, Leng Ruoxue felt a pair of resentful eyes locked on her. She couldn't help but sigh softly. Sigh. She knew who it was without even looking. Freak. Leng Ruoxue called out softly, but she didn't say anything. I'm jealous, Schwer, Freak said, pouting unhappily. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, be good. This is just a temporary measure. Leng Ruoxue coaxed as if no one was around, ignoring the gazes of Fengde and the others. Humph. That damn monkey actually dared to have designs on you. When this matter is over, I'll definitely teach him a lesson. The freak clenched his fists and said fiercely. Yes, yes. When we find who we need, you can do whatever you want with him, Leng Ruoxue said quickly. Schwer, I'm a little hurt. You have to comfort me. The freak took the opportunity to wheedle. Ah. All right. Leng Ruoxue was helpless. After returning to her room, she could only bring the freak into the bracelet and comfort him. Sigh. Miss is really pitiful. Commander Yi will definitely eat her up. After Leng Ruoxue and the freak entered the bracelet, Fengde, who stayed in the room, couldn't help but sigh. What do you know? Miss, this is all because of love. Hearing Fengde's words, Lu Tao was unhappy and couldn't help but defend her Mississippi. If she didn't love someone, who would accommodate them unconditionally? Yes, yes. Lu Tao is right. It's all because of love. I will do the same. Fengde quickly said fawningly. At least you're sensible, Lu Tao said smugly, rolling her eyes at Fengde, hee. Lu Tao. My heart is also injured. Can you comfort me too? Fengde smiled evilly and looked at Lu Tao expectantly. Yes, sure. Let's go. Let's find an empty room. I'll comfort you. Lu Tao smiled. Well. Since Fengde had this wish, how could she bear to disappoint him? Let's go. Fengde was very happy. He finally had a chance to get close to her. It was really not easy. Just like that, Lu Tao and Fengde found an empty room and closed the door tightly, cutting off everyone's curious gazes. How do you think Lu Tao will comfort the captain? Someone asked curiously. I don't know. Song Di shook his head, his face full of anticipation. Well. They didn't dare to discuss Miss Matter, but they could still discuss Fengde's matter. Tisk, is there a need to say that? The captain must be in trouble. There's no one around Miss who isn't violent, especially women, Lin Yuan said understandingly. Actually, he didn't think highly of Fengde. What did you say? If you have the guts, why don't you repeat what you just said? Hearing this, Cui Zhu narrowed her eyes and said with a faint smile. Humph. After following Miss for so many years, she had also gained a lot of knowledge. She was no longer the innocent and cute little girl from before. Therefore, she was determined to defend the rights and interests of women. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M, I didn't say anything, really. Lin Yuan corrected himself shamelessly and wailed in his heart. Boo-hoo. He was right. The women beside Miss were indeed violent. However, he had forgotten that there was a woman standing beside him. He was doomed. He stole a glance at Cui Zhu, who was glaring at him with her hands on her waist. Lin Yuan's heart was beating non-stop. Not long after, there was the sound of thunder from the room Feng De and Lu Tao had just entered. Then, Feng Da's wail. Ah! Lu Tao! Calm down. Calm down. Feng Da's voice came from the room from time to time. When everyone heard this, their foreheads could not help but drip with cold sweat. However, they could not help but secretly laugh in their hearts. Hee hee. This time, they had gone for wool and come home shorn. How could tofu be so delicious? However, when Feng De walked out of the room with Lu Tao as if nothing had happened, everyone saw the 2 bruises on Feng Da's eyes. Even though they suppressed their laughter, their flushed faces revealed their thoughts. Ah! I fell down accidentally, Feng De explained awkwardly. He was clearly trying to hide something. In fact, it would have been better if he hadn't explained. Everyone could have resisted pretending that nothing had happened, but now that he had, they couldn't help but laugh. Ha! Seeing everyone laughing wildly, Feng De looked at Lu Tao with resentment and felt extremely aggrieved. Boo-hoo! It was really too embarrassing. It was alright if she wanted to beat him, but why did she have to beat his face? How could he face anyone now? Feng De, how did you fall down? Why are the injuries so neat? Even the size is the same. Oh. You look a little like the panda that Miss mentioned. Even though Cheng Wu was laughing and out of breath, he could not help but tease him. Chapter 945, The Suspicious Yuan Biao, 2, Do you want to try too? Feng De narrowed his eyes and said dangerously. No. I want to live a few more years. Cheng Wu said with a look of fear. Women were tigers. He was afraid. Humph. Sooner or later, you'll have a chance too, Feng De said fiercely. No. My heart is not that fragile. Cheng Wu said with a naughty smile. Definitely. Just you wait, Feng De said with certainty. Captain, does it hurt? Quite a bump, Captain, isn't it? Feng Da's subordinates also asked with concern. However, their eyes were filled with anticipation. You'll know if it hurts when you get it, Feng De growled. Then, he looked at Lin Yuan and asked, what are we eating later? Tofu. Lin Yuan said with a smile. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, what? Feng De glared and roared. I said tofu. We all want to have tofu today, Lin Yuan said fearlessly. Well. There were not many such opportunities, so they had to seize them. Yes, yes. Everyone nodded cooperatively. It's good to eat tofu. Healthy. Song Di suddenly said with a serious expression. Instantly, everyone laughed again. However, Feng Da's expression was not so good. Just you wait. This day will come sooner or later. I curse you to be even more miserable than me. Feng Da's face darkened as he said angrily. Boo-hoo. He had really lost face today. He didn't get to take advantage of her and even became the target of ridicule. Lu Tao. You have to compensate me when you have the chance. Feng De muttered to himself. Captain, you can't do that, they all said in unison, and then burst out laughing. In the bracelet. When Leng Ruoxue and the freak walked out of the purple bamboo house and saw the dishes on the dining table, they said in confusion, why is it all tofu today? Even though this tofu was very nutritious, she couldn't make all the dishes on the table. Leng Ruoxue's head hurt when she saw these dishes. Feng De, what's wrong with your eyes? Len Ruoxua inadvertently turned her head and saw Feng De hiding in the crowd with two panda eyes. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "Oh. Did something happen that she didn't know about?" "Nothing. I accidentally bumped into it." Feng De felt that he was too ashamed to face anyone. Boo-hoo. It was too embarrassing. He decided that he wanted to stay in the space. He would go out when the bruises on his eyes disappeared. It was Lu Tao's fault for not allowing him to take pills. "Then you're really too careless." Len Ruoxua suppressed her laughter and did not expose him. Sigh. She was not stupid. How could she not tell that Feng De was beaten up? However, even if Feng De did not say it, she could guess who beat him up. After all, there were not many people in this world who could make Feng De willingly be beaten up. "Miss, I'll stay in the space for the time being," Feng De said aggrievedly. "Why?" Len Ruoxua's face was full of question marks. "I'm injured. I'll go out after I recover." Feng De found a dignified excuse for himself. Then, he stole a glance at Len Ruoxua, his heart in turmoil. "It's just a small injury. Just take a pill. Don't think about slacking off. We still have to go to the First Alliance." Len Ruoxua said disapprovingly. If Feng De stayed in the space, he wouldn't be able to come out easily in the First Alliance. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL.C0M, "I can't take pills," Feng De whispered weakly and lowered his head, not daring to look at Len Ruoxua. "What's the reason?" Len Ruoxua couldn't understand. Why couldn't he take pills? He would only recover quickly after taking pills, even though he didn't think the two bruises on Feng Da's eyes were considered injuries. "Lu Tao don't allow me to eat it. She said that eating the pill wouldn't be good for my injuries," Feng De said aggrievedly. "Ah. In that case, stay in the space." Len Ruoxua held back her laughter and said helplessly. Alas. This was clearly someone punishing Feng De. However, it was not convenient for her to ask about her subordinate's family matters. "Yes, yes." Feng De was overjoyed to hear his lady agree. "Let's eat." Len Ruoxua looked at the tofu on the table and said speechlessly. However, since she had made it, she had to eat it. Otherwise, it would be too wasteful. However, after this meal, no one had any intention of eating tofu for the time being. 2 days later. The ape was able to stand up. Even though his injuries were still acting up, he was much better than when he had first woken up. In the ape's room. Len Ruoxua pretended to be worried as she looked at the ape sitting on the bed and said helplessly, "Young Master Yuan, I've tried my best to heal your injuries." "I know." "Thank you, Miss Ning," the ape said gratefully. His injury was very strange. He looked healed, but it hurt terribly when it acted up, so he had suffered a lot in the past 2 days. "Young Master Yuan, why don't I send someone to inform Alliance Master Yuan and ask him to pick you up? The Ascender Alliance is filled with talents. Perhaps they will have a way to treat your injuries." Len Ruoxua frowned and thought for a moment before asking. "But I really don't want father to see me like this," the ape said hesitantly. He deliberately only said half of what he wanted to say. Actually, he wasn't afraid that his father would see his current situation. He was clearly afraid that he wouldn't be able to see the Miss Ning he liked. However, if Miss Ning could live with him in the First Alliance, that would be a different story. He couldn't help but think to himself. Then what should we do? "If your injury is delayed, I'm afraid it will affect your health," Len Ruoxua said as if she understood him very well. There was still worry on her beautiful face. "Miss Ning, actually, I haven't returned to the First Alliance for so many days. I'm also afraid that father will be worried, but I'm even more afraid that father will see me like this." Sigh. "What do you think I should do?" the ape said helplessly. "You still have to go back. Like you said, you haven't been home for a few days. Your father must have been worried to death," Len Ruoxua reminded. "Yes, you have a point. Miss Ning, Send someone to deliver a letter for me. This is a token. With this, no one will dare to stop you. The ape handed Leng Ruoxue a golden token. Chapter 946, The Suspicious Yuan Biao, 3, okay, I'll send someone over in a while. Leng Ruoxue took the token handed over by the ape and casually glanced at it. Her heart kept thumping. This Ascender alliance was really showy. Even the token was made of gold. However, the gold in this world didn't seem to be anything precious. Miss Ning, didn't you want to find Leng Xiaoyu? He's in the first league. Why don't you come with me to stay in the first league? This way, you can find a chance to persuade my father. Of course, I'll help you too. The ape finally revealed his plan. That's not too good. With my identity, it doesn't seem appropriate for me to live in the first league. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will cause some Ascenders to be dissatisfied, Leng Ruoxue said as if she was in a difficult position. In fact, she was already overjoyed because she was waiting for the ape to take the bait. It's okay. They don't dare to be disrespectful to Miss Ning. Otherwise, I won't let them off, the ape promised. Young Master Yuan, my visit to the Ascender Alliance is confidential, so, Leng Ruoxue deliberately didn't finish her sentence because she was waiting for the ape to continue. I understand, Miss Ning. Don't worry, I won't leak your identity, the ape hurriedly said. He knew Miss Ning's concerns very well, and he also knew that there were indeed some people in the Ascender Alliance who were very repulsed by the natives. However, in his opinion, this was not a big deal. After all, his father was the person in charge of the Ascender Alliance in the Divine Continent. I feel so much more relieved with young Master Yuan's guarantee, Leng Ruoxue said with a look of relief. Then Miss Ning means, the ape was a little uncertain. Didn't young Master Yuan want to invite me to the first league as a guest? I agree to do it, Leng Ruoxue said with a faint smile. That faint toothy smile was like a warm spring breeze that blew into the ape's heart again, making him feel a little smug. Yes, yes. The ape nodded repeatedly, feeling extremely intoxicated in the depths of its heart. Those lifeless eyes were filled with countless hearts. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, young Master Yuan, have a good rest. I'll send someone to inform Alliance Master Yuan later. Seeing that her goal had been achieved, Leng Ruoxue didn't want to see the ape that had started to become infatuated, so she quickly bade farewell. The ape sat on the bed with a silly smile, thinking about something. After Leng Ruoxue returned to her room, she instructed Cheng Wu and Song Di to go to the first league with the token. After a long time, the two of them returned, followed by a few people sent by the Alliance Master. Then, Leng Ruoxue and the others followed the ape into the First Alliance. Because Leng Ruoxue and the others had the dual identities of Miss Ning and the Alliance Master's savior, they were arranged to stay in the best guest room in the First Alliance. Looking at the decorations in the room, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but click her tongue in wonder. This alliance was really extravagant. They actually decorated the guest room so luxuriously. Were they afraid that others wouldn't know that they were rich? The walls of the room were inlaid with many crystals. Moreover, most of them were top grade, and the worst was high grade. As for the furnishings, they were all carved from secret gold and mithril. This mystic gold and mithril were both materials for refining weapons. Moreover, they were expensive, but they were used to carve them into decorations. This made Leng Ruoxue very speechless. Lass, when we leave this place, let's bring the crystals on the wall and the decorations in the room with us. The disheveled old man said with some envy. Well, do that. Leng Ruoxue nodded in agreement. Hee. Girl, we can't forget the flowers in the garden. The little old man also reminded her. Alas! What a waste! Those flowers were actually used as ornamental plants to decorate the garden. One had to know that there were a few rare medicinal herbs inside. Yes. Leng Ruoxue also felt that it was a waste to leave such a good thing in the First Alliance. However, she didn't understand. Logically speaking, the first alliance raised many alchemists and blacksmiths. How could they not know that some things were difficult to obtain even with money? Leng Ruoxue and the others toured casually. After the tour, they quietly waited in the room. At this moment, in Yuan Biao's study, Yuan Biao was sitting in a chair, listening to his trusted subordinate's report. Alliance Master, according to you, I've already arranged for Miss Ning and the others to stay at the Falling Swallow residence, the subordinate said very respectfully. Oh, is there anything unusual about them? Yuan Biao asked very cautiously. Even though he had never seen his son's savior, he heard from Hou'er that the woman who saved him was the young lady of the Ning family. However, he did not believe that woman's identity. Please keep reading on MYB0xN0VL.C0M. If she was really the young lady of the Ning family, why would she come to the Ascender Alliance? It had to be known that the forces of the Ascender Alliance and the natives were incompatible on the surface. Even though there were no absolute friends or enemies in this world, he just couldn't believe that woman's identity and was even more afraid that his son would be used by others. After all, although he had many women, he only had this one son. Therefore, he usually treasured him very much. Unfortunately, before Hou'er could finish speaking, his injuries acted up again. Not yet, the subordinate replied. He did not dare to be too sure. Do you think that woman is Miss Ning? Yuan Biao asked indifferently, but his gloomy face was expressionless. I'm not very sure either. However, that Miss Ning is as beautiful as a flower and has an extraordinary temperament. She definitely doesn't look like the daughter of an ordinary family, the subordinate said honestly. When he first saw that woman, he was also stunned and couldn't help but sigh. How could there be such a beautiful woman in the world? Oh. Yuan Biao listened to his subordinate's words and replied indifferently before falling silent. Alliance Master, the young master has recovered. Suddenly, the guard's report sounded outside the door. Hearing the guard's report, Yuan Biao stood up from his chair, opened the door, and walked towards the original residence. After walking into Yuan House room, Yuan Biao looked at his son with some heartache and said with concern, Hou'er, are you feeling better now? Father, I'm fine, Yuan Ho said weakly. His face was very pale after the pain. That's good. Yuan Biao was relieved. He only had one son, and he usually doted on him. This time, he didn't know who he had provoked to cause trouble. Sigh. He really didn't let him worry. Chapter 947, The Suspicious Yuan Biao. 4. Father, where's Miss Ning? She saved my life. You can't neglect her, Yuan Ho said worriedly. Don't worry, Father will treat them well, Yuan Biao said helplessly. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Sigh. A grown son really couldn't be kept at home. Hou'er, is she really Miss Ning? Yuan Biao asked suspiciously. Father, how could there be someone who dares to pretend to be Miss Ning? You'll know when you see her, Yuan Ho said with a smitten expression. Miss Ning's beauty was famous in the Divine Continent. If that woman wasn't Miss Ning, then who else was worthy of being called Miss Ning? Oh. According to my son, I really have to find time to meet Miss Ning. Yuan Biao chuckled and teased. He could tell that the Miss Ning his son mentioned had long taken his soul away. However, I don't understand why Miss Ning came to our Ascender Alliance. Yuan Biao still couldn't completely believe his son's words, so he asked again. Father, she's here to look for Leng Xiaoyu, Yuan Ho said after some thought. He had yet to tell his father about this, but he had to say it sooner or later. Why is she looking for Leng Xiaoyu? Yuan Biao immediately became vigilant after hearing Yuan Hao's words. After all, not many people knew that Leng Xiaoyu was in his hands. How could a woman know? She asked Leng Xiaoyu to refine weapons for her father, Yuan Ho said. How did she know that Leng Xiaoyu is in our Ascender Alliance? Yuan Biao narrowed his eyes and asked dangerously. Please keep reading 0 and MYB0's novel. Calm, she doesn't know. I told her, the original owner said quickly. You said that? Didn't I warn you not to let anyone know about this? Why did you still tell her? Yuan Biao said resentfully. Why didn't he know that his useless son had actually become a Casanova? Everyone said that girls looked good on the outside. Why was it the other way around when it came to him? Father, Miss Ning is my savior. Moreover, if I can get Ling Xiaoyu to refine weapons for her, she will definitely be very happy, Yuan Biao said shyly. You betrayed your father just for a woman. Yuan Biao regretted letting him know so much about him. Now, he had raised an ingrate. He and Miss Ning had yet to do anything, but he already knew how to betray his father to please a woman. Sigh. He was really sad. Father, how can this be considered betraying you? Don't you want to build a relationship with the Ning family? If I can marry the Ning family's young miss, you'll also be proud, the original marquis said with a hint of flattery. He knew that only by coaxing his father would his father possibly let Miss Ning see Ling Xiaoyu. If you can marry the young lady of the Ning family, perhaps I will be happier, Yuan Biao said very realistically. The young lady of the Ning family was naturally referring to the direct line. Even though the Ning family's head's line on the god's mainland was also considered a direct line, it was still a little inferior to the main family. I only like the young miss of the Ning family on the divine continent. As for the main family's Miss Ning, who knows what she looks like? What if she's an ugly freak? Yuan Ho said disapprovingly. In any case, he had his eyes on Miss Ning. You useless brat. Yuan Biao stomped his feet in anger hearing Yuan Hao's words. Father, you'll help me, right? Yuan Ho didn't care how his father scolded him. Anyway, he knew that his father would definitely agree in the end. No, I can promise you anything else, but not this. Yuan Biao refused, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Sigh. It seemed that this son of his had really been spoiled. How could he continue like this? Father, don't you love me anymore? Boo-hoo. Mother. Father doesn't love me anymore. Take me with you. Yuan Ho said with tears in his eyes. As for the mother he mentioned, she died not long after giving birth to him. Therefore, every time his father was unwilling to satisfy his request, he would very unfilially mention his mother who had already passed away. The result of doing this could be said to be tried and tested. You unfilial son. Yuan Biao roared in exasperation. Then, he flicked his sleeves and turned to leave in anger. Father, Yuan Ho lay on the bed and called out softly. He did not expect his father to not agree to him this time. Boo-hoo. He could not accept this fact. Yuan Biao was so angry that he turned around and left the original husband's room before returning to his study. Sitting on a chair in the study, Yuan Biao looked at his very respectful subordinate standing in front of him and said angrily, "How's the investigation going?" "Alliance Master, we didn't find any clues about the person who injured the young master. However, I did find out that Miss Ning's subordinate has been looking for someone recently," the subordinate reported. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M, looking for someone. Is it Ling Xiaoyu? Yuan Biao asked with a frown. As for who? I haven't found out yet, the subordinate said uneasily. You haven't found out? Why are you so useless? Can't you even handle such a small matter? Yuan Biao roared angrily, venting all the anger he had provoked from his son on this unlucky subordinate. He couldn't bear to hit or scold his only son. Would he care about a subordinate? Alliance Master, I've already done my best, the unlucky subordinate said helplessly. The young master had been injured for a few days, and now he only remembered to ask him to find someone. Wasn't this like finding a needle in a haystack? Where could he find someone like this? Moreover, the murderer had probably left the Ascender Alliance a long time ago. After all, which fool would stay here and wait to be caught after injuring someone? He couldn't help but secretly grumble. Try your best. You can't find the murderer who injured my son, but you don't know who that Miss Ning is looking for. Tell me, what else can you do? Humph. I know that the person Miss Ning is looking for is Ling Xiaoyu. Yuan Biao roared. Alliance Master, that Miss Ning has been staying in the guest shop since she came to the Ascender Alliance. Even though her subordinates often go out to look for people, who have they contacted? We can't find out in such a short time. Alliance Master, please give me some time, the unlucky subordinate pleaded. No need. I already know who she's looking for, Yuan Biao snapped. Chapter 948, The Suspicious Yuan Biao, 5, I'm giving you a mission now. Go and find out for me if she's really Miss Ning, Yuan Biao instructed. After all, his doubts had not really been dispelled. Moreover, he had also thought about it just now. If she was really Miss Ning, it was not impossible for Ling Xiaoyu to refine weapons for her. Alas! Who asked him to only have such a precious son? Please rest assured, Patriarch. I will definitely investigate it thoroughly, the subordinate hurriedly promised and secretly decided that he would definitely atone for his crimes this time. After saying that, the subordinate left the study. However, Yuan Biao did not believe the guarantee of that unlucky subordinate. Not long after, he arranged for another person to investigate Miss Ning's identity. After giving the instructions, he was finally relieved. Well, this should be foolproof. Time passed, and soon, 3 days passed. In the middle of the falling swallow dwelling, Leng Ruoxue and the others sat in the courtyard in boredom. It had been 3 days. Apart from delivering food to them on time, no one from the First League had actually come looking for them, and they couldn't move around too openly. However, they had sneaked around a few times in stealth, but they hadn't found any clues. Miss, the Yuan father and son wouldn't have forgotten about us, right? Feng De said listlessly. Did you forget to arrange for someone to send us food? Leng Ruoxue rolled her eyes at Feng De and asked speechlessly. But no one is paying attention to us. Feng De was very depressed. He was so free that his hair was about to grow out. He really wanted to create trouble like before. However, it was not possible here. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, Yuan Biao won't see me before confirming my identity, Leng Ruoxue said knowingly. In the past 3 days, Yuan Biao had never shown his face. Apart from the fact that the ape often had an attack, it was also because he hadn't confirmed his identity. Then how will he confirm your identity, miss? Feng De was very curious. I don't know, but they should send someone to the Ning family's divine realm. Leng Ruoxue guessed after thinking for a while. Ah! Miss, if he really sends someone to the Ning family's divine realm, won't his identity as the young miss be exposed? Feng De whispered worriedly. Even though Miss had never admitted that she was the young miss of the Ning family, this was still very disadvantageous to them. After all, the ape was certain. What are you afraid of? Since you're here, take it easy. Leng Ruoxue wasn't worried because she had never clearly told the ape that she was from the Ning family in the Ning family's divine realm. The ape had misunderstood. Hee. How could the people of this world play word games with her, a person from another world? Miss, are you really not worried? If our identities are exposed, it will be very disadvantageous for us to search for your ancestor, Feng De reminded. However, he admired his Miss calmness. Alas! He could not compare to her. What's there to worry about? This is a misunderstanding. Who can they blame? Leng Ruoxue said irresponsibly. Ah! Feng De understood. Miss had already thought of a countermeasure. No wonder she looked so calm. Stay here in peace. He will let us see our cheap ancestor, Leng Ruoxue said with a light smile. Yes. Feng De and the others nodded. If Miss said she would definitely do it. At the same time, Yuan Biao was like an ant on a hot pan. He kept pacing outside the original Marquis room, his heart burning with anxiety. Damn it, he didn't know how many times Hoer's illness had acted up. Previously, he had clearly said that Hoer was fine, but for the past 3 days, his son's injuries had repeatedly acted up 2 or 3 times a day. Moreover, every time the illness acted up, Hoer's body would be extremely weak. This couldn't help but make his heart ache and feel helpless. Not only that, he even found all the alchemists in the alliance, but they were all helpless. Sigh. This made him so anxious that his hair was about to turn white. Listening to the wails coming from the room, he really didn't feel good. After a while, the room finally fell silent. As the door of the room opened, several people dressed as alchemists walked out. There were men and women among them. From their appearance, they looked to be in their early 30s. However, people from the god realm could not just look at their appearance. How are Hoer's injuries? Is there a way to treat them? Yuan Biao asked anxiously. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M, Alliance Master, there's nothing we can do. The young master hasn't been poisoned and his injuries are almost healed, but he still relapses from time to time. As for the reason, we haven't found it yet, a rather calm man said helplessly. Logically speaking, he had treated many strange and complicated illnesses, but he couldn't do anything about the young master's illness. Sigh. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that he wasn't skilled enough. One had to know that there was always someone better. There was no end to learning. Alliance Master, we've tried all kinds of medicinal pills to treat internal and external injuries. However, they don't seem to be able to treat young master's illness. Sigh. We're really helpless. Alliance Master, you should go to the Alchemist Association and invite a few seniors with high expectations to take a look at young master, an alchemist suggested. Alright, I'll immediately send someone to the Alchemist Association to invite someone. When Yuan Biao heard the words of the alchemists, he knew that they really had no choice. Therefore, the only thing he could rely on now was the Alchemist Guild. Alliance Master, we'll take our leave first. The alchemists bowed slightly to Yuan Biao and left the waiting garden where the original host lived. Okay. Yuan Biao nodded. After watching the alchemists leave, he sighed heavily in his heart and pushed open Yuan Hao's door. Father, you're here. Yuan Hao was a little exhausted from the torture. He lay on the bed and greeted him. Sigh. He was so tired that he didn't even want to speak. He didn't know what had happened, but the past few days, when his illness acted up, it was even more unbearable. Hoer, how are you feeling? Yuan Biao asked with concern, his eyes filled with concern. Father, hasn't my injury already healed? Why is it still like this? Yuan Hao didn't understand how this could happen. Even though he would have an attack during the few days he stayed in the guest shop, it was only pain. However, when his illness acted up these few days, it wasn't just pain, it was also very itchy. He could endure the pain, but he really couldn't do anything about the itch. Hoer, don't worry. Father will immediately send someone to the Alchemist Association to invite someone. They will definitely cure you, Yuan Biao promised. Yes. Yuan Hao nodded. He knew that his father would not leave him alone. Father, have you seen Miss Ning? Did you agree to her request? Yuan Hao couldn't help but ask again. Hoer, didn't we agree to let's not talk about this first? Let's treat your injuries first. Yuan Biao said helplessly. Sigh. Hoer already looked weak, but he was still worried about that Miss Ning. He really didn't know what charm that Miss Ning had to make his good-for-nothing son so concerned. It seemed that he had to meet that Miss Ning early to prevent this damn child from falling deeper and deeper. Father, just promise me that you'll help her. Yuan Hao pleaded. Let me think about it. Yuan Biao said perfunctorily. Father, this concerns my future happiness. Yuan Hao reminded him. I know. Father knows his limits, Yuan Biao said helplessly. Rest. Father will leave first, Yuan Biao said again. After saying that, he turned around and left Yuan house room. After returning to the study, Yuan Biao thought for a long time. In the end, he decided to meet Miss Ning, who lived in the falling swallow dwelling, first. Then, he instructed the guards to invite her over. Not long after, the guard who went to inform them returned. Leng Ruoxue was naturally with him. Miss Ning. Please take a seat. Yuan Biao looked at Leng Ruoxue in amazement, but he was secretly surprised. What a beautiful woman. He had lived for so many years and thought that he had seen many women, but those women were worlds apart from Miss Ning in front of him. One was a phoenix, and the other was a chicken. There was no way to compare. Sigh. It was no wonder that his good-for-nothing son would be infatuated with this Miss Ning. There were probably not many people who could reject such a beauty. Even he was a little restless looking at her face to face, let alone that impetuous brat. However, this Miss Ning was beautiful, but her strength was a little low. She was only a spiritual deity. Yuan Biao carefully sized up Leng Ruoxue and pondered. Chapter 949, Doubts Eliminated. 1. Leng Ruoxue found a chair and sat down after hearing Yuan Biao's words. Then, she openly let Yuan Biao size her up while she observed the alliance master. Yuan Biao was tall, burly, and very rough and strong. Even though he wasn't particularly handsome, his manly aura was very strong. Moreover, he gave off a very shrewd feeling. His strength was at the intermediate level of an advanced god. However, what she couldn't understand was how such a shrewd man could educate such a second-generation heir. Could it be that the ape wasn't his biological child? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but guess wildly in her heart. Fortunately, Yuan Biao did not know what she was thinking. Otherwise, he would definitely vomit blood from anger. However, Leng Ruoxue saw that Yuan Biao seemed to be very satisfied one moment and frowned the next. She couldn't help but find it funny. Was Yuan Biao giving her marks? Otherwise, why did he look so conflicted? I've heard a lot about Alliance Master Yuan, Leng Ruoxue said indifferently after a while. Hee, Miss Ning, I wonder how you came to our Ascender Alliance. Yuan Biao pretended to be puzzled. I've been looking for Leng Xiaoyu's whereabouts, so I came to this place, Leng Ruoxue said very sincerely. Miss Ning, why are you looking for Leng Xiaoyu? Yuan Biao knew what the consultant was saying and looked at Leng Ruoxue very seriously, as if he planned to find some clues from her words. I'm naturally looking for Lord Leng Xiaoyu to refine weapons. I heard from young Master Yuan that Lord Leng Xiaoyu is in the First Alliance. I wonder if Lord Leng Xiaoyu can let me see him. Leng Ruoxue asked casually. Miss Ning, to be honest, Leng Xiaoyu is indeed with me. However, I can't let you see him yet. After all, he was temporarily locked up by me because he made a mistake. Yuan Biao thought for a while and observed Leng Ruoxue's reaction. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, in that case, when will Alliance Master Yuan allow me to see him? Leng Ruoxue chuckled and asked disapprovingly. This. I can't say for sure, Yuan Biao said after a pause. After all, even though he had already seen Miss Ning in person, he was still not completely sure of her identity. Alliance Master Yuan, my father likes the equipment refined by Sir Leng Xiaoyu the most. Therefore, as his daughter, I naturally have to do my best to satisfy him, so I hope that you can make an exception, Leng Ruoxue said very sincerely. Miss Ning, it's not that I don't want to give you face, but Leng Xiaoyu made a mistake and it's not appropriate for her to see outsiders, Yuan Biao said with a troubled expression. I wonder what mistake Leng Xiaoyu made. Leng Ruoxue pretended to be curious. He violated the rules of our Ascender Alliance. That's why I locked him up as punishment, Yuan Biao said helplessly. I don't know if Sir Leng Xiaoyu has violated that rule. If it's not serious, I want to plead with the former Alliance Master on his behalf. I hope that Alliance Master Yuan can spare him on my account. Leng Ruoxue said very cautiously, but she couldn't help but feel uneasy in her heart. This Yuan Biao really had the cheek to say that. The ancestor was not a member of the Ascender Alliance now. No matter which rule he violated, Yuan Biao didn't have the right to lock him up. This. Miss Ning, it's really not convenient to talk about Leng Xiaoyu. However, since Miss Ning is pleading on his behalf, I can't not give you face. However, I can't make the decision alone. I still have to discuss with the elders in the alliance before I can finally decide if I can spare him. Yuan Biao played a delaying tactic. Even though he had already decided that if he could prove Miss Ning's true identity, it was not impossible for Leng Xiaoyu to refine weapons for her. However, he couldn't let her get her way easily now. Only then could he show the identity and status of their Ascender Alliance. What Alliance Master Yuan said makes sense. Then I'll wait for the former Alliance Master's good news, Leng Ruoxue said with a light smile. Then, she stopped mentioning this matter and started chatting with Yuan Biao. Alliance Master Yuan, how are your son's injuries? Leng Ruoxue asked with concern. Sigh. Don't mention it. Hoer's injuries make all the alchemists in our alliance helpless. Yuan Biao sighed heavily and said gloomily. How can this be? Isn't young Master Yuan's injuries almost healed? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be in disbelief. It looks like he's recovered, but his injuries still recur occasionally, Yuan Biao said helplessly. This is too strange. However, young Master Yuan's injuries shouldn't be delayed for too long. He has to be treated as soon as possible. Leng Ruoxue said with concern, but she couldn't help but secretly laugh in her heart. In fact, the ape's injuries had long recovered. The occasional relapse was only a side effect. It would dissipate automatically in half a month at most, so there was no need to treat it at all. Well, torture was inevitable. I want to too. But I really can't think of any good solution. Sigh. Yuan Biao said with a headache. At the mention of his son, he couldn't help but reveal a true emotion. You don't have to worry, your son is blessed by the heavens. He will definitely recover. Alliance Master, this is my token. Take this token and go to the Alchemist Association to find someone to help. It can be considered as me doing my best for your son. Who asked us to have ape feces? Leng Ruoxue took out a token from her storage ring after saying that. The token was silver-white with the word Ning engraved on it. Hee. Actually, she had taken this token from Miss Ning. She didn't expect it to be useful today. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M Yuan Biao took the token and took a look. His thoughts spun. Could it be that she was really Miss Ning? Otherwise, how could this token be explained? He had seen the Ning family's token once, and it was indeed like this. Moreover, the silver token also represented that this Miss Ning in front of him had a high status in the family. Thank you, Miss Ning. I appreciate your kindness, Yuan Biao said calmly. The former Alliance Master doesn't have to be so polite. Leng Ruoxue smiled indifferently. Miss Ning, how is your father's health recently? Even though he had this token that was enough to prove the identity of the woman in front of him, he still didn't dare to confirm it easily, so he probed again. Chapter 950, Doubts Eliminated, 2, Very good. My father has been worried about my marriage recently, Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. I think Miss Ning has too many suitors. I wonder which one your father chose to be his son-in-law. Yuan Biao teased. Alliance Master Yuan. Leng Ruoxue blushed and was a little embarrassed. It's normal to get married when you grow up. If I had a daughter as beautiful as you, I would also be worried. Yuan Biao seemed to be deeply touched and his eyes were filled with envy. Doesn't Alliance Master Yuan have many daughters? I'm afraid you won't be able to not worry, right? Leng Ruoxue teased. Hee, I don't have a daughter as beautiful as you. However, that son of mine has me worried sick. Sigh. Yuan Biao was very helpless. Now, whenever he mentioned his useless son, he could not help but sigh. Alliance Master Yuan, don't worry about your son's injuries. He will definitely recover, Leng Ruoxue comforted. I hope so. Yuan Biao had a headache over this matter. After that, Leng Ruoxue and Yuan Biao chatted aimlessly until it was late. Before Leng Ruoxue left Yuan Biao's study, Yuan Biao said reluctantly, I'm really sorry. I had too much fun chatting with Miss Ning and actually forgot the time. Miss Ning must be hungry. I'll immediately get the kitchen to prepare food and send it to Miss Ning. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, thank you, Alliance Master Yuan. I'll take my leave first. Leng Ruoxue stood up and bowed slightly before leaving Yuan Biao's study. After returning to the falling swallow dwelling, Leng Ruoxue saw the freak sitting in the courtyard looking at her with a bitter expression, and the others also looked worried. Why? Are you afraid that I'll be eaten by Yuan Biao? Leng Ruoxue teased with a light smile. Miss, why were you gone for so long? We were all worried to death. Fengde was the first to complain. Because Yuan Biao had only invited Miss alone, they stayed in the falling swallow house. They did not expect their Miss to be gone for so long before returning, so they were on tenterhooks. Yuan Biao kept asking me questions, so I came back late, Leng Ruoxue said embarrassedly. Swear, you have to compensate me, the freak said aggrievedly. Ah. You want compensation again? Leng Ruoxue said speechlessly. This freak clearly wanted to take advantage of her. However, he actually referred it as wanting compensation every time. Yes, you made me worry. In the future, if you make me worry again, you have to make it up to me. The freak smiled evilly and said with a hint of smugness. He had thought of this method, all right. Sigh. All right then. Leng Ruoxue was very helpless, so she pulled the freak back to her room and then entered the purple bamboo house in the bracelet to compensate. After Leng Ruoxue and the freak returned to their room, Fengde couldn't help but say with envy, Commander Yi is really too powerful. He can succeed every time. Well. I wonder how he did it. Boo-hoo. Why couldn't he do it? Fengde felt very upset at the thought that he could never get the compensation he wanted. Are you very envious? Do you want to learn? Lu Tao narrowed her eyes and said with a faint smile. Ah. No, I don't want to. I'm just lamenting, really. I promise. Fengde said shamelessly, and his words immediately attracted several disdainful gazes. I say, Fengde. You're too embarrassing for a man. Chen Wu smiled evilly and provoked. Ah. There's food to eat if you listen to your woman, Fengde said shamelessly. In any case, this was not the first time he had lost face. Ever since he was teased by them last time, his tolerance had soared. At least you're obedient. Lu Tao said with a smile. Then, she pulled Fengde back to her room. Ah. Captain isn't going to be abused again, right? Someone couldn't help but say worriedly when he saw Fengde being pulled into the room by Lu Tao again. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M, hehe. Well, no, in a while. Lin Yuan said curiously. However, they waited in the courtyard for a long time. Feng Das wail did not come from the room, which surprised them. It shouldn't be like this. Lin Yuan was very puzzled. Could it be that the captain held back this time? It's getting late. Let's not wait foolishly. We'll find out tomorrow anyway, Chen Wu said after thinking for a while. Although he was also curious, he was sleepy. Yes. Everyone nodded and went back to their rooms. The next day. Everyone who was waiting to watch the show got up early in unison and gathered in the courtyard, intending to see the results of last night's battle first thing. However, when they saw Feng De come out of the room refreshed and intact, they were all surprised. Feng De, are you alright? Cheng Wu asked with concern. However, he was more curious. Well, could it be that the injuries this time weren't on his face? I'm doing very well. Feng De smiled in satisfaction. Captain, are you feeling unwell? Lin Yuan couldn't help but ask. No, I feel very good now. Feng De smiled proudly, feeling even more pleased. That shouldn't be. How could this be? Lin Yuan muttered to himself. Rascal, what do you mean? Do you want to die? Feng De couldn't help but scold with a smile. These guys felt uncomfortable if they didn't see him being tortured. Sigh. Their thoughts really made him sad. Nothing, nothing. Lin Yuan hurriedly said in fear. Boo-hoo. Why did he accidentally say what was on his mind? What do you mean nothing? At this moment, Leng Ruoxue and the freak walked out of the room and asked curiously. Ah. Lin Yuan was a little embarrassed and didn't know what to say. He couldn't tell Miss that they wanted to see a good show for the captain. Did you do something bad again? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but guess. Miss, we don't, Lin Yuan quickly promised. Sigh. Bear with it for the time being. Leng Ruoxue thought for a while and said. She knew the uneasiness in her subordinates' hearts very well, so she didn't want to restrain them too much. Chapter 951, Doubts Eliminated, 3, Well, Miss, breakfast is ready, Song Di interrupted. Okay, let's have breakfast. Leng Ruoxue nodded. After breakfast, Leng Ruoxue brought everyone to see the ape. The ape's residence was called the Waiting Garden. When Leng Ruoxue saw the two words written outside the courtyard, she almost laughed out loud in her heart. Hee hee. This name was really vivid and appropriate. Didn't the ape have to live in the monkey garden? After entering the monkey garden, Leng Ruoxue and the others walked into the ape's room unimpeded. No one stopped them along the way. Leng Ruoxue guessed that Yuan Biao had already greeted them, so their entry went so smoothly. In the ape's room. The ape looked at Leng Ruoxue, who was not far away, with a face full of surprise and joy. He was extremely excited in the depths of his heart. In the past few days, he had been tortured by his illness, so he did not take the time to see the Miss Ning he liked. However, what he did not expect was that Miss Ning actually took the initiative to see him. Then, was Miss Ning interested in him? He could not help but let his imagination run wild. How are young Master Yuan's injuries? Leng Ruoxue asked despite knowing the consultant's concern. It's alright, Miss Ning. I'm really sorry for inviting you to the First Alliance. However, as your master, I can't treat you well, the ape said apologetically. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, hee hee, I should be the one saying that I'm sorry. In the past few days when we came to the First Alliance, the former Alliance Master has been worried about your illness and didn't have time to see us, so we didn't dare to walk around casually and could only stay in the Falling Swallow dwelling obediently. Well. Young Master Yuan won't blame me for not visiting you, right? Leng Ruoxue asked in embarrassment. No, my father has seen you. The ape heard the meaning in Leng Ruoxue's words and probed. Yes, we just met yesterday and we chatted until very late, so I can come over to see young Master Yuan today, Leng Ruoxue said with a light smile. Did my father promise you? The ape asked nervously. Not yet. He said he wants to discuss it with the elders. After all, Leng Xiaoyu violated the rules of your Ascender Alliance. He can't make the decision alone, Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. Oh. Miss Ning, don't worry. As long as I see my father, I will put in a good word for you. The ape promised, but he couldn't help complaining in his heart. Alas. He knew that his old fox-like father wouldn't agree to this easily. Then I'll thank young Master Yuan first, Leng Ruoxue said politely. Miss Ning is my savior. It's only right for me to do something for you, the ape said awkwardly. Young Master Yuan, I don't want to be a savior. I've said it before, this is fate, Len Ruoxue said helplessly, but she couldn't help but feel uneasy in her heart. Even though she was the one who asked Fengde and the others to carry the ape back, it was also Fengde and the others who injured this monkey, so the term savior was actually unworthy of her reputation. Miss Ning, you have saved my life. If you hadn't saved me, I'm afraid I would still be lying on the streets. The ape said with self-awareness. He knew that his previous record was not good, so even if he disappeared for 10 days or half a month, his father would not be worried. After all, no one dared to harm him in the territory of the First Alliance. However, he had suffered a huge loss this time. Now, as long as he thought of the people who injured him, he gritted his teeth in hatred. However, those people were missing now, so he had nowhere to vent his anger. Young Master Yuan, don't think too much now. It's more important to treat your injuries as soon as possible. Len Ruoxue saw the ape's anger and comforted him. Yes, I know. However, if I find the person who injured me, they won't have an easy time. Humph. I won't let them off, the ape said fiercely. Young Master Yuan, even if you want to take revenge, you have to recover from your injuries first. The most taboo thing for patients is to be angry, so you have to endure it. Len Ruoxue advised very cautiously and muttered to herself, do you want to find the person who injured me? I'm afraid I won't be able to find him in this lifetime. Yes, I know. The ape nodded obediently. Young Master Yuan, I won't delay your rest anymore. Otherwise, Alliance Master Yuan will blame me. Well, take our leave first. Len Ruoxue turned around and left the ape's room with the freak and the others. After Len Ruoxue left, Yuan Ho lay on the bed thoughtfully. After thinking for a long time, he instructed the guards to invite his father over. After Yuan Biao received the report from the guard, he knew why his son was looking for him. After all, he had already heard that Miss Ning had gone to see Hoer in the morning. However, he did not want to go to the waiting garden now. However, he could not resist Yuan Hao's urging and finally, he could only go. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M in Yuan Hao's room. Yuan Biao looked at his weak son sitting on the bed and said helplessly, Hoer, why are you looking for father so urgently? Father, are you willing to let Miss Ning see Ling Xiaoyu or not? Give me a straightforward answer, the original owner asked bluntly. Hoer, how can you talk to me like that? I'm so anxious about your illness, but you keep thinking about a woman all day long. Sigh. I'm really disappointed. Yuan Biao sighed and complained. Father, I know you dote on me, but Miss Ning is my savior, so I have to help her fulfill her wish, Yuan Ho said stubbornly. He knew that this was the only thing he could do to please Miss Ning, so how could he not work hard? Hoer, I know very well what you're thinking. However, Miss Ning hasn't fallen for you. Aren't you afraid that everything you've done for her will be for naught? Yuan Biao said cunningly. Even though the person he had sent to investigate Miss Ning's identity had yet to return, after seeing Miss Ning's token yesterday, most of his doubts had dissipated. However, he still wanted to fight for more benefits for his son. Father, I understand what you mean. That's why I want to use this matter to please her. Yuan Ho said honestly. It's not appropriate to use this to please her. That Ling Xiaoyu is also a rare and beautiful man. Aren't you afraid that the two of them will fall in love at first sight? Yuan Biao reminded. Chapter 952, Doubts Eliminated, 4, She Want, Yuan Ho said with confidence that came out of nowhere. Humph. You fool. How can you not know that a woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the sea? Yuan Biao said with some disappointment. Why didn't this stupid son learn his shrewdness at all? He really didn't know who he took after. The guards by Miss Ning's side are not inferior to Ling Xiaoyu, so she wouldn't like Ling Xiaoyu even if that's the case. Yuan Ho said disapprovingly. Even though Miss Ning had never introduced the people around her to him, he knew that they were all her subordinates. Guards? Are you sure? Yuan Biao asked curiously. He had never seen what Miss Ning's guards were like. Yes. Yuan Ho nodded. Father, you have to help me, Yuan Ho added worriedly. Father knows his limits. You should rest first. Father is leaving, Yuan Biao said. With that, he left the waiting garden. However, he did not return to his study directly. Instead, he went to the falling swallow dwelling because he was a little curious about the guards beside Miss Ning. When Yuan Biao saw the guards beside Leng Ruoxue, he believed in Leng Ruoxue's identity a little more because in his opinion, only top families could nurture such outstanding guards. After he returned to the study, he met the few trusted subordinates he had sent out. In the study. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm Yuan Biao looked at his subordinate in front of him and said calmly, how's the investigation going? Alliance Master, we went to the Ning family's divine realm and found out that Miss Ning has not been at home recently. I heard that she went out, a subordinate reported. Oh. What else? Yuan Biao continued. Ah. The subordinates looked at each other, but they were speechless. You guys went there for a few days and only found out about this? Seeing that his subordinates were silent, Yuan Biao said gloomily. These subordinates were too useless. Alliance Master, the Ning family's divine realm is heavily guarded. We don't dare to ask too much, another subordinate said with some difficulty. Have you asked around about Miss Ning's appearance and characteristics? Yuan Biao asked, unwilling to give up. Everyone in the Ning family's divine realm says that Miss Ning is a rare beauty. Moreover, I heard that Miss Ning has a token that can prove her identity, the subordinate said, and the others hurriedly echoed. A token? What kind? Yuan Biao pretended not to know. I think it's silver, the subordinate said after a moment. Is something like this? Yuan Biao said and took out a silver token from his ring. That's right, this is it. Alliance Master, why is this token in your hands? Ah. I heard that the Ning family only recognizes tokens and not people, the subordinate said. Do you recognize the card but not the person? Yuan Biao said thoughtfully. Now that the card was in his hands, could he use it? Yes. The subordinate nodded. Got it. If there's nothing else to report, you can leave first. Yuan Biao said. Alliance Master, we'll take our leave then. The subordinates bowed and left the study. After his subordinates left, Yuan Biao sat alone in his chair and looked at the sign in his hand with a myriad of thoughts. Please keep reading on MYB 0xN0VL. C0M the next day. Yuan Biao came to the falling swallow dwelling again. This time, he brought good news to Leng Ruoxue and the others. He said that he had already discussed with the elders and could let her see Leng Xiaoyu. President Yuan, thank you so much, Leng Ruoxue said happily after hearing Yuan Biao's words. Miss Ning, you don't have to be polite. You're my son's savior. As long as I can do it, I definitely won't disappoint Miss Ning, Yuan Biao said indifferently. However, that Leng Xiaoyu has a strange temper. Sometimes, he won't even listen to me. Therefore, I really can't guarantee if he's willing to refine weapons for you. Hee, Miss Ning is from an aristocratic family. She will definitely know that those blacksmiths and alchemists are not easy to serve, Yuan Biao added helplessly and did not say it too confidently. Yes, I know that. The Alliance Master Yuan doesn't have to worry. As long as I see Lord Leng Xiaoyu, I naturally have a way to convince him, Leng Ruoxue said confidently. Then I'm relieved. Miss Ning, if it's convenient, I can bring you to see Leng Xiaoyu now, Yuan Biao said very proactively. Okay. Leng Ruoxue nodded calmly. She had been waiting for this sentence. Then please follow me, Yuan Biao said. Leng Ruoxue and the freak followed Yuan Biao through a few turns and finally arrived outside a sealed room. The room was underground and should belong to the secret chamber of the First Alliance. He didn't expect his ancestor to be locked up here. No wonder Qing Ju couldn't find him. There was a defensive array outside the secret room that could stop anyone from investigating. Yuan Biao quickly formed a few hand seals with both hands. Not long after, the array formation disappeared. "Miss Ning, please follow me in," Yuan Biao said and opened the door of the secret room. "Okay." Leng Ruoxua looked at the freak and followed Yuan Biao in. Chapter 953, Rescued, 1. After entering the secret room, Leng Ruoxua realized that it was bigger than she imagined. However, the decorations inside were very simple. Other than a bed, there was only a table and a chair. A man in black was sitting on a chair and reading a book. Even though the man's back was facing them, Leng Ruoxua knew that it was undoubtedly her ancestor. "Leng Xiaoyu, I brought Miss Ning to see you," Yuan Biao said calmly. "I don't know any Miss Ning," the man with his back facing them said coldly without even turning his head. "Leng Xiaoyu, don't be too arrogant. You're a prisoner now," Yuan Biao roared angrily. It was just that Leng Xiaoyu's indifferent look made him very annoyed. "So what if he's a prisoner?" The man smiled indifferently. In any case, he knew that Yuan Biao wouldn't kill him, so he wasn't worried about angering Yuan Biao at all. I brought Miss Ning here to let you refine weapons for her. You have to perform well. Miss Ning's status is not ordinary." Yuan Biao held back his anger and reminded her. In the God realm, other than the divine masters, no one dared to not give the Ning family face. Therefore, he hoped that Leng Xiaoyu would know her place. One had to know that even if the status of a blacksmith was high, not everyone could provoke him. "I'm just a prisoner. I'm not in the mood to refine weapons. So, no matter what Miss Ning or Miss Xu, please go back," Leng Xiaoyu said disapprovingly. After locking him here, he actually wanted him to curry favor with the Ning family for his alliance master Yuan. "No way. Miss Ning thinks highly of you for letting you refine weapons for her. Don't be ungrateful." Yuan Biao was so angry that his chest trembled as he threatened. "I don't need anyone to think highly of me," Leng Xiaoyu said without giving him any face. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. "Calm, Alliance Master Yuan, can you let me talk to Lord Leng Xiaoyu?" Leng Ruoxua asked with a light smile. He. The ancestor's ability to anger people to death was not small. Looking at Yuan Biao's trembling body from anger, she wanted to laugh. Therefore, she only asked after watching enough. Yuan Biao hesitated. To be honest, he was really a little worried if he let them be alone together. However, if he listened to their conversation from the side, it would seem that he was not very honest. Therefore, he was conflicted. Leng Xiaoyu was even more shocked when she heard this voice. Why did this Miss Ning's voice sound so similar to little Shuer? No. Impossible. She must be hallucinating. How could that girl find this place? However, with doubts in his heart, he still turned around curiously. When he saw the familiar figure standing not far away, he rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Oh. It was still there, but how did little Shuer become Miss Ning? Yuan Biao didn't think so when he looked at Leng Ruoxua attentively. Yuan Biao was a little angry as he looked at Leng Xiaoyu staring at Miss Ning like a love-struck fool. He couldn't help but grumble in his heart. He didn't expect Leng Xiaoyu to be immortal. She didn't even blink when she saw a beautiful woman. He originally thought that the extremely cold Leng Xiaoyu wouldn't be charmed by beauty. It seemed that he had overestimated her. You are Miss Ning? Leng Xiaoyu asked in confusion. Yes, Lord Leng Xiaoyu, I've heard a lot about you. I wonder if you can refine weapons for me. We can negotiate on the price, Leng Ruoxua said softly and secretly gave Leng Xiaoyu a look. I wonder what price Miss Ning can offer, Ling Xiaoyu asked calmly, as if he was very greedy. He understood immediately when he saw the secret code little Shuer gave him. Sigh. It seemed that this girl had specially used a fake name to find him. Lord Ling Xiaoyu, name your price. I guarantee that you will be satisfied, Ling Ruoxue said with a faint smile. Name my price? Can Miss Ning accept any price? Ling Xiaoyu asked with a light smile. Of course, Ling Ruoxue nodded and said with certainty. What if I want Miss Ning to marry me? Ling Xiaoyu said seriously with a faint smile on her face. Ling Xiaoyu, how dare you? Who do you think Miss Ning is? Before Ling Ruoxue could answer Ling Xiaoyu, Yuan Biao jumped out and roared. That damned Ling Xiaoyu actually dared to have designs on Miss Ning. He was really tired of living. In his heart, Miss Ning was reserved for his son. However, he also knew that his son was simply incomparable to Ling Xiaoyu. As long as one was not a fool, anyone would choose Ling Xiaoyu. Therefore, he was very worried that Miss Ning would be abducted by Ling Xiaoyu. Alliance Master Yuan, Miss Ning, and I are discussing business. Isn't it too rude for you to interrupt? Ling Xiaoyu asked back without anger. There was still a beautiful smile on his handsome face. If I hadn't brought Miss Ning over, would you have this business deal? Therefore, you'd better consider your identity and not ask for too much. Don't you think you're worthy of Miss Ning? Yuan Biao said very disdainfully. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL.C0M, how am I not worthy of Miss Ning? I'm one of the best blacksmiths in the Divine Continent. I also have a master who is the vice president of the Artificer Association headquarters. Why do you think I'm not worthy of Miss Ning? Ling Xiaoyu asked in confusion. If I say you're not worthy, you're not worthy. There's no other reason. Yuan Biao said angrily. In fact, if Ling Xiaoyu hadn't said that, he might not have been so angry. However, he was very angry now. Moreover, it was because of that stubborn old man that he had captured Ling Xiaoyu. They had thought that with Ling Xiaoyu, their proud disciple, in their hands, that old man would definitely commit a crime. However, who knew that they had miscalculated? That old man did not care about Ling Xiaoyu's life at all. Therefore, they had captured him for nothing. Now, they were even more unable to back down. They could not lock him up, nor could they let him go. Sigh. Has Alliance Master Yuan turned from embarrassment to anger? Ling Xiaoyu smiled happily. Even though he had been locked up here for a period of time, angering the Alliance Master Yuan had already become one of his current joys. Therefore, how could he let go of this opportunity? Chapter 954, Rescued, 2, Ling Xiaoyu. You'll regret it later, Yuan Biao roared at the top of his lungs. Is that so? I've been waiting for this day for a long time. However, I don't think you'll be able to see it. However, you can definitely see your regret, Ling Xiaoyu said happily. Besides, you're not Miss Ning's father. Can you control Miss Ning's marriage? Ling Xiaoyu added, her face full of curiosity. You. Damn you, Ling Xiaoyu. You're my prisoner now, yet you still dare to speak to me like this. I think you really don't want to live anymore. Yuan Biao was so angry that he didn't know what to say. He held it in for a long time before thinking of using a prisoner to threaten her. Unfortunately, she didn't care at all. Ling Ruoxue and the freak stood at the side and looked at these two men, who were both quite old, actually acting like children. They quarreled and cold sweat trickled down their foreheads because none of them had seen Ling Xiaoyu like this. It could be said that Ling Xiaoyu had always been very serious. Alliance Master Yuan Lord Ling Xiaoyu, what are you arguing about? Ling Ruoxue pretended to be puzzled. As soon as Ling Ruoxue said this, the two people who were arguing were slightly stunned. However, Ling Xiaoyu naturally pretended to be angry, and Yuan Biao, who was already red with anger, realized that he seemed to be even angrier. Why did they quarrel for so long? Couldn't Miss Ning tell what they were arguing about? Yuan Biao was really angry and annoyed, but he couldn't flare up at Leng Ruoxue, so he could only focus all his firepower on Leng Xiaoyu. Miss Ning, of course we're arguing because of you. Alliance Master Yuan said that I'm not worthy of you, Leng Xiaoyu said calmly, his handsome face seemingly aggrieved. This. Lord Leng Xiaoyu, I'm afraid I can't make the decision to marry you. After all, my father has to decide on my marriage, but with your status and my father's love for you, he will definitely agree. However, you have to refine what I want first so that my father knows your sincerity, Leng Ruoxue said very cautiously. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm. When Yuan Biao heard Leng Ruoxue's words, he secretly cheered and praised from the bottom of his heart. As expected of the daughter nurtured by the Ning family. She was indeed scheming, hee. When Leng Xiaoyu refined the equipment Miss Ning needed, wouldn't she let her do whatever she wanted? After thinking about it for a long time, he felt much better. He couldn't help but look at Leng Xiaoyu gloatingly. Miss Ning, if I refine what you want first, won't I suffer a huge loss if you don't admit it? Leng Xiaoyu looked at Yuan Biao provocatively and said indifferently. Lord Leng Xiaoyu, you should believe in the credibility of our Ning family, Leng Ruoxue reminded. Hee, credibility has always been a lie, Leng Xiaoyu said in disbelief. Miss Ning, since this Leng Xiaoyu doesn't know what's good for him, I think we don't have to beg him anymore. Let's go. Yuan Biao interrupted again and urged. If he stayed any longer, he would definitely be angered to death. Therefore, unless necessary, he would never come here. Lord Leng Xiaoyu, I'm very sincere. You have to believe me. Leng Ruoxue didn't respond to Yuan Biao's words but said very sincerely. Unless you promise me first. Leng Xiaoyu refused to let go. The words, no discussion, were written on her face. Miss Ning, it seems that this fellow is stubborn. Let's not waste our breath on him, Yuan Biao hurriedly said. Sigh. All right. Alliance Master Yuan, let's leave for the time being. Lord Leng Xiaoyu, I hope you can consider my suggestion carefully. I'm very sincere, Leng Ruoxue pretended to be unwilling to give up. There's no need to consider it. If you want me to refine weapons for you, that's the only price I'll offer, Leng Xiaoyu said stubbornly. Sigh. It seems that we can't reach an agreement today. Alliance Master Yuan, let's leave first. Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. Okay. Yuan Biao was happy to hear that Leng Ruoxue was willing to leave. Then, the three of them left the secret room together. After leaving the secret room, on the way back, Leng Ruoxue said gratefully, Alliance Master Yuan, sorry to trouble you today. Miss Ning, you don't have to be so polite. Sigh. I couldn't help much with this matter. I'm really ashamed. Yuan Biao said in embarrassment. How can you blame Alliance Master Yuan for this? It's obvious that Leng Xiaoyu doesn't know what's good for him, Leng Ruoxue pretended to be angry and even called Leng Xiaoyu directly. Yes, that's right. That Leng Xiaoyu is an arrogant fellow. His eyes have always been on top of his head, Yuan Biao echoed. Even though he really wanted to mock Leng Xiaoyu, he still held back in order not to ruin his image in Leng Ruoxue's eyes. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M. In fact, he was overthinking because he had no image in Leng Ruoxue's heart. Alliance Master Yuan, I won't give up so easily. However, I want to leave him hanging for a few days before going to talk to him about this matter, so I'm afraid I'll have to trouble Alliance Master Yuan, Leng Ruoxue said embarrassedly. Miss Ning, do you still want to look for him to refine weapons? Our Ascender Alliance has many good blacksmiths. Why don't you change to another one? Yuan Biao suggested. For the sake of his son, he really didn't want Miss Ning to meet that pervert Leng Xiaoyu. Now, whenever he thought of Leng Xiaoyu looking at Miss Ning like a love-struck fool, he couldn't help but feel angry. My father only likes the equipment refined by Ling Xiaoyu. Otherwise, I wouldn't have to beg him so humbly, Len Ruoxue said helplessly. She even sighed softly and said, "I'll have to trouble Alliance Master Yuan then." Ah. It's not troublesome. I'm just afraid that Ling Xiaoyu will offend Miss Ning with her words. Yuan Biao deliberately pretended to be worried. It's okay, I'm mentally prepared, Len Ruoxue said confidently. Ah. In that case, Miss Ning, you just have to send someone to tell me when you want to go. Yuan Biao thought for a moment and said. All right, Alliance Master Yuan, well, return to the Falling Swallow dwelling first. Len Ruoxue nodded and returned to the Falling Swallow dwelling with the freak. Chapter 955, Rescued, 3, in the courtyard of the Falling Swallow dwelling. Fengde and the others were as anxious as ants on a hot pan. They kept walking around. At the same time, they were a little worried. Miss had been gone for so long. Why hadn't she returned? Could it be that she had been exposed? However, when they saw Len Ruoxue and the freak appear in the courtyard, they finally relaxed. Miss, you're back. When Fengde and the others saw the two of them, they hurriedly surrounded them. Miss, why were you gone for so long? We were so worried, Lu Tao complained softly. Hee, what's there to worry about? Would Yuan Biao eat me? Len Ruoxue teased with some amusement. Miss, how is it? Have you seen Ling Xiaoyu? Cheng Wu asked softly. Okay. Len Ruoxue nodded and didn't elaborate. Moreover, after chatting with them briefly, Len Ruoxue and the freak entered the bracelet together. In the bracelet. When Ling Qianye saw Len Ruoxue and the freak, he immediately walked forward and said, Little Shuer, you must think of a way to save Grandpa. Otherwise, I'm afraid Yuan Biao will harm him. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, yes, don't worry. We've already confirmed his location. Well, take action late at night. I'll go and study the technique Yuan Biao used first. Len Ruoxue directly entered the cultivation room in the purple bamboo house after saying that. In the cultivation room, Len Ruoxue sat on a meditation cushion and looked at the technique Yuan Biao used, memorizing it in her heart. Previously, when Yuan Biao used this cultivation technique to activate the array formation, she had asked Qing Ju to record this cultivation technique so that she could use it when she saved her cheap ancestor. After memorizing the cultivation technique, Len Ruoxue began to experiment on her own. Her hands kept dancing in the air as she formed several cultivation techniques. After skillfully operating it a few times, she found Qing Ju and asked curiously, Qing Ju, do you think my technique is similar to Yuan Biao's? Sister, the cultivation technique you used is even better than the one Yuan Biao used. However, there's no array formation that can allow you to truly practice it now, Qing Ju said with some regret. Even though he wanted his sister to set up a defensive array formation like that to practice, the array formation set up by his sister might not be suitable for this cultivation technique. After all, even though it looked the same on the surface, the person who set up the array formation would usually add something that belonged to him. Therefore, it was difficult for outsiders to set up the exact same array formation. I'm confident after hearing Qing Ju's words, Len Ruoxue said with relief. Her goal was to familiarize herself with this technique. As for practicing it, she really didn't care too much. Sister, will we leave this place immediately after saving the old ancestor? Qing Ju asked curiously. No. After saving the cheap sake old ancestor, we still have to stay here for a few days to avoid arousing Yuan Biao's suspicion, Len Ruoxue said after some thought. Yes, Qing Ju nodded in agreement. That was exactly what he meant. Qing Ju, I'll go out first. Len Ruoxue left the cultivation room in a flash. At night, in the dead of the night, Len Ruoxue asked Ya to cast an invisibility spell on her and the freak before leaving the Falling Swallow residence together. Leng Ruoxue and the freak walked along the path they had walked during the day and arrived at the entrance of the underground secret room. The freak nodded at Leng Ruoxue, indicating that they could begin. Leng Ruoxue understood. Then, she stretched out her slender hand and cast several spells that she had long memorized. A moment later, the array formation on the secret room disappeared. Leng Ruoxue and the freak walked straight in. Please keep reading on MYB0xN0VL.C0M. After entering the secret room, Leng Ruoxue asked Dazzle to remove their invisibility and the two of them appeared in front of Leng Xiaoyu. At this moment, Leng Xiaoyu was sitting on a chair in deep thought. However, when he saw Leng Ruoxue and the freak suddenly appear in front of him, his eyes couldn't help but widen in surprise. He thought to himself, did little Shuer and the freak turn invisible just now? Could it be that they have a divine artifact that can turn invisible? Sure. Leng Ruoxue gestured for her to keep quiet, and Leng Xiaoyu could only temporarily put away her doubts and curiosity. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue thought of something and brought Leng Xiaoyu into the bracelet. Ah! Where is this? Leng Xiaoyu looked at the place that had changed in surprise, his handsome face full of question marks. Grandpa! Suddenly, Leng Qianye threw himself into Leng Xiaoyu's arms and cried loudly. Ah! Leng Qianye, what triggered you? Why are you crying? Leng Xiaoyu couldn't take it anymore. Well. Ever since Qianye became sensible, he hadn't done such a thing for a long time. Therefore, he couldn't help but wonder if Leng Qianye had been replaced. Grandpa! When did I cry? When Leng Qianye heard this, he was so frightened that he hurriedly jumped out of Leng Xiaoyu's arms. Ah! There seemed to be something wrong with him. He actually threw himself into his grandfather's arms. Boo-hoo! He was already so old, how could he still do such a childish thing? Could it be that he had been led astray by little Shuer? He couldn't help but think to himself. However, if Leng Ruoxue knew that Leng Qianye blamed his abnormality on her, she would definitely not let him off. Brat, you haven't told me where we are yet. Leng Xiaoyu pretended to be unhappy and reminded him after looking around. This is Shuer's territory, Leng Qianye said simply. Then, he didn't continue. Nothing else? Leng Xiaoyu asked with widened eyes. No. Leng Qianye had an innocent expression on his face. He even blinked his pitch-black eyes adorably and stared at his grandfather. Brat, are you looking for a beating? Leng Xiaoyu said angrily, especially when he saw that Leng Qianye had actually learned how to act cute. The anger in his heart surged. All right. Brat, did you learn how to act pitiful? Grandpa, are you going to hit me? Leng Qianye asked pitifully with tears in his eyes. In fact, every time he saw that demon like this, Shuer would agree to everything he asked for. That was why he wanted to give it a try. Unfortunately, the test subject he found was his grandfather. If he was a girl, Leng Xiaoyu might have doted on him a little. However, he was a very independent man since he was young. Leng Xiaoyu could not help but feel a little uncomfortable. Chapter 956, Rescued, 4, Yes. Brat. Who asked you to pretend to be pitiful? After saying that, Leng Xiaoyu chased after Leng Qianye and started fighting. Grandpa, you're so ruthless. I'm your biological grandson, your biological grandson. Leng Qianye kept muttering as he ran and dodged, his expression abnormally aggrieved. If you hit him, Leng Xiaoyu roared. If he wanted to hit someone else's grandson, what could they do? Therefore, if he wanted to hit someone, he had to hit his own. Little Shuer, help. Grandpa is going to hit me, Leng Qianye begged for help. However, the person he was calling for help had long left the bracelet and was already on the way back to the falling swallow dwelling. Leng Ruoxue and the freak hid themselves and swaggered around the headquarters of the First Alliance. When she heard Leng Qianye's cry for help from the depths of her mind, a gorgeous smile hung on her beautiful face. Shuer, what's wrong? Seeing the smile on Shuer's face, the freak asked in confusion. Hee, Ling Qianye was beaten up by the cheap sake old ancestor for acting cute, Ling Ruoxue said with a wicked smile. Serves him right. Who asked him to want to learn from me? The freak said without any sympathy. That fellow had always pretended to be pitiful and did not have a good impression of him. To put it bluntly, it was Ling Qianye's jealousy that was playing tricks. Hee. Now, he finally got his retribution. Yes, he has to find the right person even if he wants to act cute. Acting cute to his cheap ancestor is asking for a beating. Ling Ruoxue nodded in agreement. Just like that, the two of them chatted as they walked and soon returned to the Falling Swallow dwelling. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm in the Falling Swallow dwelling, Feng De and the others were not asleep. At this moment, they were all waiting for them in Ling Ruoxue and the freak's room. After seeing Ling Ruoxue and the freak appear, everyone watched eagerly, but no one spoke first. Why aren't you guys asleep yet? Didn't I say that we don't have to wait? Ling Ruoxue said speechlessly. Miss, I don't know how we can fall asleep in the end, Feng De said aggrievedly. They originally wanted to listen to Miss, but they couldn't fall asleep in bed no matter what. Therefore, everyone gathered here in unison. Don't worry, we've already saved her. She's in the space. You can go to sleep now. Ling Ruoxue said bluntly and urged. Miss, let us enter the space and greet that ancestor. Feng De requested. It's too late now. Tomorrow. Ling Ruoxue said after some thought. Miss, we can't sleep now, Feng De said in embarrassment. Actually, compared to sleeping, they were more curious about why Miss Ancestor was imprisoned by Yuan Biao. All right then. Ling Ruoxue was very helpless. Then, she brought them into the bracelet. After entering the bracelet, everyone saw Ling Qianye's extremely sorry state. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. They wanted to ask but didn't dare to. Therefore, all of their faces turned red. Shuer, why did you let them in? Ling Qianye complained tearfully. It was over. The image he had painstakingly built in front of everyone was completely ruined. He had lost all his face. They all want to greet their cheap ancestor. Otherwise, they won't be able to sleep. Ling Ruoxue suppressed her laughter and explained. Oh. Then I'll go back to my room first. After Ling Qianye finished speaking, he directly entered his bamboo house and refused to come out to see anyone. Hello, old ancestor. Feng De and the others immediately greeted Ling Xiaoyu. When they saw Ling Qianye fleeing, they suppressed their laughter, lest their grandfather beat them up in anger. Little fellows, you all look pretty good. Ling Xiaoyu said with some relief. In the past few days after being locked up, he had been worried about these little fellows who had just arrived in the God's continent. Now that he saw that they were all safe and sound and that little Shuer had escaped from the Wen family, he was relieved. However, he was a little upset that he could not help at all and was even saved by these little fellows. Sigh. He was really too useless. Yes, it's fine. Everyone nodded. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M, Little Shuer, you're really blessed. You can actually have such an opportunity, Ling Xiaoyu said emotionally as he looked at the space with dense spiritual energy. He had just heard about the situation here from Qian Yi and knew the little butler, Qing Ju. Moreover, this space was definitely a good place to cultivate. My luck is indeed very good, but I want to hear more about why I was locked up by Yuan Biao, Ling Ruoxue asked calmly. It's because of my master. Ling Xiaoyu sighed and said helplessly. Chapter 957, The Little Peacock Being Teased. 1. Why do you say that? Ling Ruoxue asked in confusion. The God Realm will hold an artifact refinement competition every 100 years, and this year happens to be the time of the competition. Therefore, the various large factions pay special attention to it. The rewards for this championship are also very generous. Many of them are very rare refining materials. Even I am very tempted. However, there's an age limit for participating, so even if I want to participate, I can't. Sigh. Ling Xiaoyu said regretfully. Then what does this have to do with your master? Ling Ruoxue didn't understand. Little Shuer, my master is the vice president of the Blacksmith Association headquarters, and he's also in charge of this competition. It's said that there's a genius blacksmith in the Ascender Alliance, so the Ascender Alliance very much hopes that the champion this time can come from their side. However, there's always someone better. They don't want any accidents to happen, so they captured me to threaten my master, Ling Xiaoyu explained. And then? Ling Ruoxue knew the general reason and asked again. My master has always been stubborn and upright. Naturally, he wouldn't be threatened by them, so I was locked up by Yuan Biao, Ling Xiaoyu said helplessly. TSK, what kind of master is this? He didn't even save his disciple when he was captured, Fengde said disdainfully. Hee. You've misunderstood my master. It's not that my master doesn't want to save me. He's just unwilling to be threatened. However, he has already made a statement to the Ascenders. If the Ascender Alliance dares to make me lose a strand of hair, he will definitely make them disappear from the God realm. Therefore, Yuan Biao doesn't dare to kill me at all, Ling Xiaoyu said confidently. He never doubted his master's influence. After all, his master was one of the only two weapon gods in the God realm and was also a divine emperor. Therefore, he really had to consider if he had the right to provoke his master. Oh. Fengde nodded in understanding. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, I say, little girl's ancestor, are all the competitions in the God realm calculated in centuries? The disheveled old man asked curiously. Hundreds of years. To the people of the lower realm, they were already considered old men and old women. Therefore, it was really difficult for him to imagine a group of old men and old women participating in the blacksmith competition. More or less. 100 years is just a snap of the fingers for people in the God realm. People your age can only be considered babies here, Ling Xiaoyu said with a happy smile. Ah. It's really too scary. I can't imagine a group of old men and women trembling as they participate in the competition, the disheveled old man said speechlessly and said what was on his mind. His words also caused Ling Ruoxue and the others to laugh. Ha! Your imagination is really rich. Fengde laughed until tears came out. Hee, in the God realm, even old men and old women are very young. When you completely transform your bodies into energy bodies, you will have a chance to reconstruct your bodies. Therefore, at that time, everyone can maintain their state at your most perfect state. Ling Xiaoyu chuckled. Really? The disheveled old man's face was filled with surprise. He really didn't expect that there was such a benefit to energy conversion. Hee. Back then, because his cultivation speed was relatively slow, he was already an old man when he advanced to the spiritual supremacy realm. Only by advancing to the spiritual supremacy realm would his appearance not change again. Therefore, he could only maintain his appearance as a disheveled old man. However, if he could become younger, who wouldn't want to? Yes, if we want to become gods, we have to first transform our bodies into energy bodies. Otherwise, our human bodies won't be able to withstand the violent spiritual energy of the God realm. Otherwise, why do you think we live in the divine continent? Ling Xiaoyu said with a smile. Ah. Why? The disheveled old man asked shamelessly. You idiot, didn't the little girl's ancestors say that the human body can't withstand the violent spiritual energy of the God realm? What are you listening to? The old man knocked the old man's head and roared angrily. Ah! Isn't this the God realm? I don't feel any violent spiritual energy here. The disheveled old man looked confused. Even though this place belongs to the God realm, it can only be considered a part of the God realm. Moreover, it's said that the divine continent is a continent purified by the divine masters with a great divine power. It's specially for us, the natives who haven't completely transformed or were born in the God realm, to live in. Therefore, our bodies can withstand the spiritual energy here, Ling Xiaoyu said patiently. Ah. What will happen if we go to the God realm now? The disheveled old man was very curious. We can't go. There's a barrier between the divine continent and the God realm. Only high-level gods can pass through there. Therefore, we can only live here for now, Ling Xiaoyu said. That doesn't seem fair, does it? Why can we only live in the divine continent while the people of the divine continent can come and go as they please? If we accidentally provoke the people of the divine continent, won't we have no way out? The disheveled old man said worriedly. Don't worry. If a god from the divine continent gets into a conflict with someone on the god's continent, he can only unleash the strength of an advanced god at most. Therefore, our safety is still guaranteed, Ling Xiaoyu comforted. However, it's best not to cause trouble in the divine continent. Otherwise, if we encounter an ultimate god, even if we don't die from his pressure, we'll probably be left with half a life, Ling Xiaoyu reminded. He had been in the divine continent for many years and had a master as a weapon god as his backer. He was unwilling to provoke others easily, let alone rookies like them who had just entered the god realm. Please keep reading on MYB0xN0VL.C0M. Of course we don't want to cause trouble, but we're afraid that something will provoke us, Fengde muttered softly. What did you say? Ling Xiaoyu asked in confusion. Nothing, nothing. Fengde shook his head repeatedly. Old ancestor, how old is the age limit for the blacksmith competition? Len Ruoxue changed the topic and asked. As long as one is below 500 years old and is an artificer master, they can participate. Ling Xiaoyu chuckled. Below 500 years old? Oh my god. The disheveled old man was speechless. He really didn't know what to say about the request of the Artificer Association. However, if he only became a revered artificer refinement master at 500 years old, that person's aptitude probably wasn't much. Chapter 958, The Little Peacock Being Teased, 2, 500 is very young. Ling Xiaoyu said helplessly. Ah. But he only became a revered artificer refinement master at 500 years old. His aptitude is too poor. The disheveled old man couldn't help but say. In the god realm, it's much harder to become a revered artificer refinement master than in the lower realm. There are fewer artifact refinement masters in the lower realm and more resources. Therefore, it's relatively easier for a certain family to nurture an artifact refinement master. However, the god realm is different. In the god realm, there are more alchemists and artifact refinement masters than in the lower realm. The consequence of this is that the competition for resources is very intense. Other than some relatively large forces, some small families can't afford to nurture an artifact refinement master or alchemist. Therefore, in the god realm, it's very difficult for artifact refinement masters and alchemists to advance. Ling Xiaoyu sighed helplessly. How are those artificers and alchemists going to live? The disheveled old man said gloomily. The combat power of blacksmiths and alchemists was inferior to others to begin with, so they naturally couldn't compete with others for the good resources. Sigh. In that case, wouldn't there be no way for blacksmiths and alchemists to survive in the god realm? Basically, artifact masters and alchemists will rely on some powerful forces. This way, we can benefit from each other. However, joining a powerful force is equivalent to losing your freedom, Ling Xiaoyu said helplessly. Alas! If there was a way, who would be willing to be controlled by others? Oh! Then can I participate in the artifact refinement competition? The disheveled old man asked curiously. Have you gone to the Artificer Association to verify it? Ling Xiaoyu asked. Even though he had already sensed the rich fire attribute divine power on this old man, he really did not expect this inconspicuous old man to be an artificer. Ah. I was certified when I was in the Ling Feng continent. Does this count? The disheveled old man couldn't help but ask. He had been the president of the Artificer Association when he was in the Ling Feng continent. No, regardless of whether you're a native or an ascender, if you want to participate in the competition, you have to go to the Artificer Association to be certified. Otherwise, the Artificer Association won't acknowledge your identity, so you naturally won't be able to participate in the competition. Ling Xiaoyu explained. Oh. Girl, I want to participate in the competition. The disheveled old man looked at Leng Ruoxue and asked pitifully. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm, then let's participate. Leng Ruoxue agreed. Didn't they capture the cheap sake old ancestor for this competition champion? In that case, they would win this championship and let the Ascender Alliance cry. Yes, yes. Don't worry, I'll do my best, the disheveled old man promised. We can't just do our best. We have to win the championship, Leng Ruoxue said with a wicked smile. Ah. Girl, the opponent's strength is unknown. I really can't guarantee this championship. However, if you participate, the championship definitely won't be able to escape, the disheveled old man suggested. That's right, little Schwer. If you participate, the championship will definitely be yours, Ling Xiaoyu said confidently. Back then, he was accepted as a disciple by his master because he had won the championship in the blacksmith competition. I'm not interested, nor do I want to be in the limelight. After all, I'm still a fugitive of the Wen family. Leng Ruoxue teased herself. Girl, you can disguise yourself and participate. The disheveled old man exposed Leng Ruoxue's excuse. In fact, he knew that this girl was too lazy. Forget it. If little Schwer doesn't want to participate, don't force her, Ling Xiaoyu said helplessly. In fact, he really wanted little Schwer to participate. After all, with this girl's talent, it would be a waste if she didn't participate in the blacksmith competition. Girl, don't blame me if I don't win the championship, the disheveled old man reminded her carefully. I believe you can definitely win the championship, Leng Ruoxue said confidently. Girl, I really don't have much confidence, the disheveled old man said with an aggrieved expression. It's okay. From today onwards, I'll give you special training. I've participated in this competition before, so I'll train you well for the competition, Ling Xiaoyu said with a smile. In fact, not only did Schwer want this old man to win the championship, he also wanted to. Hee. Who asked Yuan Biao to dare to imprison him? He had also said that he would let Yuan Biao see that he regretted it. Yes, with the cheap ancestor training you, your chances of winning will be greater. Leng Ruoxue nodded. To be honest, she really didn't expect Yuan Biao to imprison the cheap ancestor because of such a small matter. It was really ridiculous. Before leaving, she had to give Yuan Biao a big gift. Thinking of this, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but ask, Cheap sake old ancestor, I heard that Yuan Biao invited you to refine weapons. Why is it related to the competition? Refining weapons. That's just an excuse he made because he was afraid that the news would be leaked, Ling Xiaoyu said with a face full of disdain. When Yuan Biao found him back then, he had indeed used the excuse of refining weapons. Moreover, he had promised to help him find Sun Tao's whereabouts. That was why he had foolishly fallen into Yuan Biao's trap. Now that he thought about it, he was really stupid. However, this was probably what people often said about being worried. Oh. Leng Ruoxu understood. Alright, it's getting late. We've understood enough. Everyone, rest early. Leng Ruoxue said again. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M. Everyone nodded and returned to their bamboo houses in the space. 3 days later. Leng Ruoxue was sunbathing on a recliner in the courtyard when the original owner suddenly ran over. Miss Ning. The ape's face was filled with excitement when it saw Leng Ruoxue. Young Master Yuan, has your body recovered? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be curious. Well, calculating the time, the medicinal effect should be about right. Yes, it hasn't acted up for 2 days. Looks like the alchemists of the Alchemist Association are still the best, the ape said happily. After resting in bed for 2 days, he felt that he should be fine. Therefore, he ran to the falling swallow dwelling immediately. He had not seen Miss Ning for a few days and was thinking about her. Yes, that's for sure. Otherwise, why would the Alchemist Association provide for them? Leng Ruoxue echoed with a light smile. The Alchemist Association would also provide for some alchemists, but their requirements for providing for alchemists were very high. After all, if the Alchemist Association wanted fame and fortune, it couldn't do without the pills refined by alchemists. However, the recovery of this ape's injuries had nothing to do with those alchemists at all. Chapter 959, The Little Peacock Being Teased, 3, Miss Ning, I heard from father that you haven't been in a good mood these past few days. Yuan Ho knew very well that his father had told him everything that had happened on the day he went to the secret room. Humph. Damn Ling Xiaoyu, how dare he make a dig at him? He couldn't help but think hatefully. Yes. I've been thinking about how to convince Ling Xiaoyu. I can't agree to his request. You know, I can't marry him. At least, I can't make the decision myself. A trace of sadness appeared on Leng Ruoxue's beautiful face, making the ape's heart ache. Miss Ning, that Ling Xiaoyu really doesn't know what's good for her. You don't have to be angry over that kind of person, the ape said indignantly. Yes, I won't be angry, but I have to think of a good solution. Sigh. Who asked my father to like the equipment he refined the most? Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. By the way, why is young Master Yuan looking for me? Leng Ruoxue suddenly thought of something and asked. I know that Miss Ning is not in a good mood, so I wanted to look for you to take a walk on the streets, the ape said in embarrassment, his face slightly red. Is there anything better on this street? Leng Ruoxue asked in confusion. I'm just going out to relax, said, but he was thinking about which places in the city he could go for a stroll. Hee hee. As long as he thought about going shopping alone with Miss Ning, he would be excited. All right. Then let's go out and relax. Leng Ruoxue said cooperatively. On the street, Ape walked in front with a dark expression. His heart was bleeding. Boo-hoo. What was going on? He had really become a guide. Moreover, he had originally thought that he could go shopping alone with Miss Ning. Who knew that there would be so many light bulbs following him? Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Calm Leng Ruoxue, the freak, and the others walked side by side. Looking at the unlucky fellow who was bullied by the freak and the others, they couldn't help but snicker in their hearts. Hee hee. If this ape explained while walking, he would really become a tour guide. Leng Ruoxue could imagine how depressed Yuan Ho was, so she was in a good mood. Miss Ning, there's really nothing much on the streets. Why don't we go back? After walking for a while, Yuan Ho couldn't help but suggest. Young Master Yuan, we just came out. Why are you going back so soon? You can't play with our miss like this. Feng De glared and roared when he heard Yuan Hao's words. I didn't. I really didn't. Miss Ning, you have to believe me. Yuan Ho was so aggrieved that he was about to cry. He had always been a tyrant, but in front of these people, he was not even a grandson. Sigh. How could this be? However, he selfishly attributed this to love. I believe you, but we just came out. If we go back now, wouldn't we have made a wasted trip? Leng Ruoxue didn't want to go back so quickly. But there's really nothing to turn around on this street, the ape said reluctantly. He really wanted to go back. In all his life, he had never been so humiliated. Feeling the strange stares of the people on the street, he wanted to dig a hole and hide in it. Really? Let me look. Fengde took out a map and searched it. Seeing that Fengde actually took out the map, the corners of Yuan House's mouth couldn't help but twitch. These people were too well prepared. They actually brought the map with them. Miss, there's a Phoenix Cry Mountain not far from here. Let's go there and play. Fengde suggested after looking at the map. Phoenix Cry Mountain. It's very far from here. It's better not to go there, Yuan Ho said in a daze. It would take at least a day to get to Phoenix Cry Mountain from here. Did these people really want to go there? Alright, let's go to Phoenix Cry Mountain. Len Ruoxue said decisively. Miss Ning, that place is really not nearby, Yuan Ho reminded her without much confidence. It doesn't matter. There's nothing to do now anyway, Len Ruoxue said disapprovingly. She knew that there were still about 2 months before the annual competition of the Artificer Association, so she was not in a hurry to rush over. Ah. Yuan Ho was a little dumbfounded. What should he do since Miss Ning wanted to go to Phoenix Cry Mountain? If young Master Yuan doesn't want to go, don't force yourself. Len Ruoxue chuckled. She almost laughed out loud when she saw the ape's conflicted expression. I'll go. However, I heard that many people were robbed in the Phoenix Cry Mountain, so we have to bring more people. The ape thought for a moment and suggested. Even though he had never been to the Phoenix Cry Mountain before, he heard from his father that it was not very peaceful there. Therefore, for the sake of his life, he naturally would not go to any dangerous places. However, now that Miss Ning wanted to go, if he did not dare to go, wouldn't he be looked down upon by Miss Ning? Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL.C0M, there's no need to bring anyone. We're enough, Fengde said confidently. Yes, young Master Yuan, do you want to return to the First Alliance and report to Alliance Master Yuan first? Len Ruoxue reminded. No need. I'm not a child anymore. Yuan Ho hurriedly said. Boo-hoo. If he really went back and told his father would definitely send many people to protect him. At that time, he would be looked down upon by Miss Ning. It's better to tell him. Otherwise, if you don't go back for a few days, Alliance Master Yuan might think that we kidnapped you. The freak smiled evilly. There's really no need, Miss Ning. Since you want to go to Phoenix Cry Mountain, let's go quickly. Yuan Ho urged. Then let's go. Len Ruoxue took out the little peacock and everyone sat on it. However, when the ape wanted to sit on it, there was no place for him. Young Master Yuan, I'm really sorry. It seems that my flying beast is too small, Len Ruoxue said apologetically. However, she didn't look sorry at all. Actually, she deliberately made the little peacock the size of one of their own, hee. It doesn't matter. I have my own. Yuan Ho summoned his flying beast. His flying beast was a black eagle. It was huge and the feathers on its body were as sharp as steel blades. Moreover, as the saying went, there was always a master. As soon as the black eagle was summoned from the beast's space, its black eyes looked around. Chapter 960, The Little Peacock Being Teased, 4, its eyes lit up when it saw the beautiful and dazzling little peacock. Beauty. Let Big Brother here hug you. It teased. As soon as it said this, the little peacock's face darkened and the feathers on its body stood up in anger. Len Ruoxue and the others were speechless. They thought to themselves, can't this eagle even differentiate between male and female? Or will it not even let a male go? That was because they were of the same gender. Fuck, whose big brother are you? The little peacock roared angrily. It hated being treated as a female the most. Very good, this dead eagle happened to touch its bottom line, so it would definitely not let it off. Even though this eagle was as strong as it had many helpers. If it really could not defeat the eagle, it would let its master release the other beasts to help it. Humph. Of course it's yours, beauty. Brother likes you. The black eagle continued to show its love to the little peacock. In its opinion, it was so handsome and mighty that this incomparably beautiful peacock had no reason not to like it. Master! I can't take it anymore, the little peacock roared. Hee hee. Calm down. Let's go. Len Ruoshua comforted in amusement. Alright, humph. Dead bird, just you wait. The little peacock said fiercely. It had already decided that it would deal with that dead bird when they reached Phoenix Cry Mountain. With that, the little peacock spread its wings. In the blink of an eye, there was only a small black dot in the sky. Beauty, I'll be waiting for you forever, the black eagle replied loudly with an affectionate expression. Then, it urged its master, Master, let's go. I say, black egg. Can you not embarrass me like this? Yuan Ho roared impatiently. If he had known this would happen, he would never have let this black and ugly thing out. Now, it was actually teasing Miss Ning's beast. Boo-hoo. This time, Miss Ning would definitely blame him. Please keep reading Zero and MYB Zero's novel. Actually, he was thinking too much because Len Ruoshua did not take him seriously at all. Moreover, her beast was not so easy to bully. It would take revenge on its own without her needing to do anything. Master, a fair lady is a good match for a gentleman. You like the master of that beauty too, don't you? Said the big eagle named Black Egg disapprovingly. How can that be the same? The ape was a little angry. It actually couldn't communicate with this dead bird. What a headache. The same. Master, the beauty is already out of sight. If you don't come up, I won't be able to catch up with her, the black egg reminded him. Don't talk nonsense. Let's go. The ape hurriedly sat on Black Egg's back. Hee hee. Master, sit tight. Black Egg reminded him. Then, it spread its huge wings and flew straight into the clouds. Whoosh! 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 Black Egg accelerated and flew. Before long, it caught up with the little peacock and flew alongside it. Beauty, you must be tired after sitting with so many people on your back. Why don't you let me share your burden? Black Egg said fawningly. Get lost, the little peacock roared, unable to vent its anger. Beauty told me to get lost, so I'll get lost. With that, Black Egg really pulled away from the little peacock and away from it. However, a moment later, it flew back and said with slight grievance, Beauty, I've finished rolling. However, I can't bear to leave you, so I came back. You, the little peacock's beautiful eyes spewed fire. It would not hesitate if this flame could roast this dead bird. However, it was so angry that it could not speak. Ah! Sensing that the little peacock's body was swaying a little, Len Ruoshua and the others understood that the little peacock couldn't stay calm anymore. Alas! This black eagle was really a top-grade creature. In comparison, its master was nothing. Len Ruoshua patted the little peacock's back helplessly. Only then did the little peacock resist the urge to pounce on the black eagle and beat it up. It decided to ignore any words from the dead bird. Otherwise, it would probably want to deal with the bird before it reached Phoenix Cry Mountain. What's wrong, Beauty? Black Egg asked expectantly. Unfortunately, the enraged peacock didn't bother to respond. Beauty, why are you ignoring me? Beauty, I'm sad. Beauty, say something to me. Please keep reading on MYB0XN0VL. C0M along the way, the black eagle muttered to itself plaintively, making Len Ruoshua and the others speechless. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.